everyone, and welcome to this live spoiler review of The Flash, brought to you by the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
Oh, look at that. I see you sync up three more universes into one. I like that as a good beginning for this. Yeah, we are here to talk about this movie, The Flash, which dropped this weekend. And as we're recording this, is precipitously dropping in the box office, unfortunately, for the people who've made the movie and, of course, for DC and everyone involved with the film. This is one that they held off on for quite some time, defended, stood by, wrote out the negative reactions to keeping EZRA Miller on, not shelving this one like they shelved Batgirl. And this one, of course, coming just a few weeks after the release of Across the Spider-Verse, in a world where multiverses have even won a Best Picture now. It's an interesting time for this film to have come out. We all know it went through a litany of directors, 3 different regime changes at Warner Brothers, apparently multiple different endings that were shot and scrapped, number of cameos that were shot and scrapped, and now finally the film debuted this past Friday or Thursday night, I guess, if you lived in one of those cities. And now here on Monday night, we are here on the Geek Buddies to break it on down. So I'm going to tell you right now, put on your seatbelt, strap in. We are going to be speeding into everything about this movie. But let's introduce ourselves first. I am the outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and I made myself 2 drinks for this discussion.
Wait. Before we get to Shannon, which one is the younger drink and which one is the older drink? Which one of the drinks is the berry drink and berry 2?
Well, neither of these has the most annoying laugh ever, so I don't think either of them is berry 2.
Wow.
But we'll say this is berry 1, and we'll say this is the less annoying berry 2.
Okay. Shannon.
Vogel needs 2 drinks because, as you see, he's an introvert. And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, where you can see some of our current work right now on Netflix with Strawberry Shortcake, Berry in the Big City seasons 1 and 2, and season 3 coming next month. Fast, like The Flash.
Nice.
On YouTube.
Is that Sears? Who's that on your? Who's that? Is that Jay Garrick?
It's Jay Garrick.
Right,
yeah,
there you go. That's
Jay
right. Who got a cameo in this movie randomly near the end of this movie. But yes, this is a spoiler review. So if you have not seen The Flash, for the love of God, stop here. Go and watch it. If you want to watch it, then come on back and hang with us. If you don't give a then please stick around, because we are going to spoil the hell out of this thing from top to bottom. We're talking cameos, Easter eggs. We're even going to get into a little bit of a comparison to the source material of Flashpoint, the comic book, as well, and dive into everything involved with this movie. So if you're worried about anything being ruined for you, now is the time to stop and get on out of here. And then come on back, for God's sakes, because we love having you. Just a reminder, Streamlabs and SuperChats are open right now. It is up on it's not actually, I'll pin it in the chat, but it's in the description of the video, and you see it right there. Super chats are already coming through from a number of people, so we will be answering them as we go along in the show. So, all right, let's get into the idea. Let's get into the Flash and get an idea of what you all think about it, Michael and Shannon. This basically is a story of a young Barry Allen, or a little slightly older Barry Allen that we've seen at the Justice League last time we checked in with him. He is the janitor of the Justice League. He goes and remembers that he saves a bunch of babies, has a memory about the death of his mom because his dad's about to go up for an appeal, and then out of pain, somehow discovers time travel, tries to tell Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck, he wants to do it. He tells him not to do it. He does it anyway. He gets pushed out of this thing into another universe and meets an 18-year-old Barry who's a big doofus. They work together. He gives second Barry his power, gets Barry his powers, and then they work together after they go to find Michael Keaton in this alternate universe who's Batman, and they find SASHA CALLE who's Supergirl. They all work together to destroy Zod, and then realize actually Barry 2 has been doing this for such a long time, and Barry 1 has to somehow break him of this habit, and Barry 1 eventually understands the power of being a hero and matures by the end of the movie. Oh, and saves his dad, and we've got a new Batman in Barry 1's universe. So that's essentially the broad brushstrokes of the movie. So, Michael Vogel, as you take a sip of Barry 1, what are your overall thoughts here about the Flash movie?
Well, contrary to what Twitter would have you believe, The Flash is not the greatest superhero movie of all time, nor is it the worst superhero movie of all time.
That's fair.
It is just okay. Which in the big scheme of things is maybe worse. I don't know. Maybe if it had been like a disaster of epic proportions, we could all agree about it, whatever. But no, the thing about that movie is it's not horrible. Wonder Woman 84 is a worse movie. Black Adam is a worse movie. There are a lot of DC. I think there are a lot of Snyder fans out there. I enjoyed The Flash more than I enjoyed Batman versus Superman or Justice League. So it's not horrible.
Okay.
I think it's a little misguided in some ways, but I also think it just suffers. And I don't think that, we'll talk a lot about Muschietti's directing. I don't know how much of this is even Muschietti's fault. Like, this is a movie, as you said, that has gone through so many iterations, so many regimes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the ending of the movie, but there was an ending that was shot when Michael Keaton was going to be the new Batman.
Right.
There was an ending that was shot when he wasn't going to be the new Batman. And then apparently there was another ending that was shot because somebody said, hey, it would be cool. So, like, between all the things going on with this and it kind of falling square, like, this was supposed to be the movie that reset the universe before Gunn and Safran were going to reset the universe.
Right.
And now it's sort of the movie that's not resetting a universe, but maybe it kind of is, but who really knows because nobody's talking. So it's a movie that has a lot of really smart choices, and about half of them are not executed great.
Wow. That is a good sum up of your overall feelings that I think is very fair, Michael. Absolutely. Shannon, your turn on this merry-go-round here. What are your thoughts on the Flash? I mean, this is a character that you like. It's not Aquaman level like, but you certainly like the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your thoughts coming out of this movie, and how many times have you seen it now?
So my feeling is that I was massively disappointed. Now, part of that is my own fault because I bought into that hype at a CinemaCon.
Yeah.
Thinking that, the folks that did say this is one of the best comic book movies ever, aside from James Gunn, who, is banging the Warner Brothers drum right now. I would love to find out more about those people who thought it was the best comic book movie of all time, because how that you would even entertain that in the conversation is just mind-boggling to me. But yeah, I mean, I think this all kind of comes down to it because I am a fan of The Flash. I just don't like Ezra Miller as Barry Allen. I think just horribly cast. I think in Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think the choices Ezra made worked in an ensemble.
Okay.
I think when you make Ezra the lead and have another Ezra, I think some of their choices do not work as well. I think before younger Barry shows up, Ezra, for me, is so over the top, is so broad. I mean, it's bordering on Disney multicam territory. So that was really my big issue with it. And when, as an audience member, if you're not dialed in to your lead, you're probably not going to enjoy the movie. Now, that's not to say that the movie is without merit, because there was some great stuff. When Michael Keaton shows up, even though I didn't love the first scene, when Michael Keaton shows up, man, that movie really got a lot better. When SASHA CALLE showed up, she is just a delight to watch. She just has an intensity about her. And that's not to say that Ezra didn't have some nice moments. That scene with Ben Affleck where they're talking about the perils of time travel, I'm like, this is a good scene. Ezra had a bunch of great scenes with Michael Keaton. I just think overall, Ezra Miller for me is just never going to work as Barry Allen. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this was Ezra's swan song as that character.
Well, I think if you're judging from the box office, I don't think you can take any other message from the box office than here is a perfect opportunity for them to wipe the slate clean. And I am wearing a Snyderverse shirt, but even I can tell you, and I support and love the Snyderverse, even though I recognize its faults, that it's time. It's time to bury it and bury, for lack of a better, and move on from it once and for all. and let James Gunn do his thing free and clear. And yes, you can bring over SASHA CALLE. I think that because that's not a Snyderverse thing. And you can bring over Blue Beetle, which I hope is what they're going to do, because Gunn has already said he's going to continue. But I think all these allusions to the Snyderverse era need to be over. And hopefully this is the last of them after we're done with Aquaman 2, if that even comes out. Michael, you were going to say something?
But even the Sasha, we're still living in this weird, and I do think this is, there's a lot of talk on Twitter about why did it fail? And I do think it's hard to define your multiverse when nobody knows what's in or out of your universe.
That's a good point.
And so even now, as we're getting into the Gunn universe with Superman Legacy, being like, well, but maybe SASHA CALLE is going to stay, and Blue Beetle should stay because the movie's coming out, but not Barry, but maybe Jason Momoa, but I don't know about Gal. Like, we're still living in this very confusing thing, and I think unless they make a really hard line in some way, it's going to continue to be really confusing. And I think the DC confusion is not the only reason that the movie had the box office that it did this weekend, but I think it's a factor for sure.
Yeah, I think 100% you're right. Someone has to come out, whether it's Gunn or Safran or Zaslav, and come out and say definitively, this is who's in, this is who's out. And I hope after the reception to this movie that they finally do that once and for all. And by the way, I low-key think that James Gunn holding the Superman Legacy auditions and screen tests on the same weekend that The Flash comes out is real suspect to me. I'll be honest with you, especially on a Father's Day weekend and Juneteenth. There's a lot of logic to me that doesn't make sense why you would have it on the same weekend as The Flash coming out and a holiday and people want to do why wouldn't you wait a week or two to have these screen tests? Maybe but I don't know.
You are literally the Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme right now. You are literally you are just connections all over the place.
Hey, look, it works for some people, these conspiracy theories things. But anyway, I just think it's odd that he would do that in the same weekend. But he did come out and say a year ago that it was an excellent movie. It was one of the greatest superhero movies he's ever seen. And so obviously people are entitled to their opinions. Stephen King talked glowingly about the movie. Tom Cruise apparently loved the movie and reached out to Andy and Barbara Muschietti to tell them the same thing. So, but Mike, what you brought up earlier, I agree with you. I don't think you can judge Andy from this movie. I think it's a miracle that Andy was even able to get this movie onto the screens, get Michael Keaton to come back as Batman, which nobody thought or even considered was possible, bringing in all those cameos and making them somewhat work, in my opinion, especially that final cameo with a certain somebody from ER, and then but of course that final scene, you can forget it in the post-credit scene. But let me run through this real quick. It started out, for some of you who remember, let's blow some dust off this. Seth Graham Smith was originally attached to the project before he left over Creative Differences. Rick Famuyiwa, who has since directed like 30 episodes of The Mandalorian, was attached to this project, and then he left over Creative Differences. John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein from Game Night were part of this, who just did a wonderful Dungeons and Dragons movie. They were a part of this and also left from Creative Differences. So there were quite a number of people, and the rumor is that there were almost 45 different writers on this script, although they credit Christina Hodson, who wrote Bumblebee and Birds of Prey. But there was 45 different writers on this script. So it seems like the film, in my opinion, although I enjoyed the movie and enjoyed my experience, I've seen it twice now, the mishmash of stuff that they're trying to make work without a coherent thread throughout that makes sense, that you can connect to and go step by step through the movie, is the biggest issue of the film. I like Ezra Miller. I thought he did a wonderful job acting both of the characters, making you believe. I thought they did a wonderful job acting both of the characters, making you believe that they were this particular Barry and this particular Barry at two different times in their lives in two different universes. I loved it. I loved Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. I really enjoyed it. He seemed to be having so much fun. I love SASHA CALLE's Supergirl. I thought she was great, and I wanted more from her. Zod, I think my man was cashing a paycheck and doing a favor for his brother, Zack Snyder, who gave him the go-ahead, which he said in interviews I mean, they even brought back the actress who played his second-hand right-hand woman in A Man of Steel, and she didn't say a damn word, but they still brought her back. So interesting stuff. Great to see Jeremy Irons back as well. And the overall story they're trying to tell is this is a Flash who is struggling and in pain and has essentially lost both parents. Okay, how do I do this? I stumble into the Speed Force. I stumble into time travel. And from there, I'm just going to make all these rash decisions and fuck everything up. And at the end, I'm going to tell the Flash that I created that, hey, man, we need to calm down. I know I showed up and destroyed your entire fucking world, but like, we need to stop doing this, man, because we got to move on. That to me, a little bit got so muddy, and the science of it all got super muddy. That being said, there were some very funny moments for me. There were some good action sequences overall. And although my companion or my compatriot, Shannon McClung, will disagree, I liked the opening baby scene with the CGI, but we will get into all of that as we go.
I actually, this is a fun one for me.
Yeah.
This is a fun one for me because I kind of feel like I will fall somewhere between the two of you on this one, which is a Geek Buddy sandwich where I get to be the meat is it's kind of nice for a change.
Oh my.
I'm usually like a really strong slice of bread on one end, and I kind of feel like I'm just gonna sit right nicely in the middle between a slab of Rocha and a slab of McClung.
Hello. Well, I've created a sheet here because I do want to kind of follow along and don't want us to go too far all over the place. So the first thing I have on my sheet, which is something that I think Shannon and I have just kind of threw our 2 cents in. So, Michael, let's get your thoughts. Ezra Miller's performance as both Barry Allen and Flash 1 and Flash 2. Your thoughts overall on Ezra Miller's performance. And, Shannon, if you want to add more to what you said earlier, I'll go to you after that. Michael, your thoughts?
So like I said, I kind of feel like I'm in the middle here because I agree with Shannon that I don't know that what Ezra is doing is, to me, the quintessential Barry Allen. But
I don't know.
I look, all of the issues outside with everything that they've done in real life and all of the controversy.
Yeah.
Ezra Miller's a damn good actor, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that Ezra Miller has some amazing moments in this movie. Mm-hmm. I think that as main universe Barry Allen, I, for the most part, really enjoy them. Like, I think they do a really, really good job. I do find 18-year-old Barry to be very annoying, particularly that laugh just kills me. But that goes to a bigger issue that I don't know is an Ezra issue. Like, I feel like this movie, I'm probably going to bring up Lord and Miller a lot as I try and do comparisons here, because I think one of the issues that the Flash has is it sort of overshoots on its comedy sometimes at the expense of its superhero-ness. And you watch Spider-Verse, which, you know, I said to several friends, I'm like, I kind of wish I had seen The Flash first and Spider-Verse second.
Yeah, I agree.
It kind of screwed it to do it the other way, because Spider-Verse to me is so amazing, and Lord and Miller have this amazing ability to do really stupidly broad comedy, whether that is a giant Spider-Man T-Rex or like Spider-Man zipping up his fly. Like, they do really broad comedy right next to really emotional moments, and they make it work. Whereas The Flash really shot for some comedy, and I feel like maybe leaned too far. Like, so for example, Barry 2 is supposed to be 18 years old, but really wants Barry 1 to put him in a pillow fort. Like, to me, that's not like an honest moment. That's like maybe we're playing Barry like he's 8. And so I feel, so all that being said, back to your original point, comedy aside, I think Ezra is a really good actor. I think they really made me feel emotions. Like that moment at the end with them and with Barry and his mom in the grocery store, like I feel that moment. And so I think I understand when you watch the movie why there were people at Warner Brothers that were like, we really want to keep Ezra around. I think that they are magnetic on screen. I just think that maybe some of the choices were a little bit overly broad.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong in terms of the story and some of the comedy. There are moments. Certainly, I enjoyed most of the comedy, but I can totally see how some of it went a little too far, a little too overboard, and what have you. And look, all of us have read Flash comic books, the three of us, and so we know there's comedy inherent.
A lightness,
yeah, there's a lightness, but certainly there were moments like the tooth going into his mouth thing that you're like, why was that necessary? You know, so Shannon, please feel free to talk some more about your thoughts on Ezra Miller as Barry. And let me ask you this: which is the worst miscast? Because I didn't know you felt he was miscast. This is new to me here. Is Ryan Reynolds the worst miscast as Green Lantern, or is Ezra Miller the worst miscast as Barry Allen, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a tough question, Johnny, because we were introduced. That was not a softball. We were introduced to Ezra in a very compromised film in that first Justice League, and then when we got to see Zack Snyder's Justice League, Ezra had a lot of nice moments. And again, I think when you're getting that sort of, wide-eyed new entry into this incredible world, I thought Ezra actually had some nice moments. But also the story wasn't resting on Ezra Miller's shoulders. When we get to The Flash, it is Ezra and Ezra's movie. And I feel like I have the only other thing I've seen Ezra Miller in was We Need to Talk About Kevin, which he played a bow and arrow wielding teen, which really good. Did a fantastic job. That was the first thing I saw Ezra Miller in, and knowing that they were going to be cast as the Flash, I'm like, the crazy kid from We Need to Talk About Kevin. So watching the trailers, I remember when we watched that first trailer at Comic-Con for Justice League, you get that moment between Bruce with he and Bruce. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, this is not Barry as I'm used to, as I have read, but this is interesting. Again, by the time, and Fantastic Beast, I thought Ezra Miller did a great job in a movie that I don't think is good. I thought Ezra Miller did a really, really good job in that first Fantastic Beast movie. I think what it comes down to with The Flash is I don't find Ezra Miller funny. I think a lot of that comedy, again, is just super, super broad. All the moments in that opening in the suit and there is just so much multicam face acting going on that it's like, my God, someone needed to tell them, like, you need to dial it back about 30%. By the time young Barry gets there, I feel like old Barry, Ezra really settles into that older Barry performance.
That's fair.
And as much as I didn't like the interpretation of young Barry, as an audience member, I understood how they got there, because it was like, okay, this is an individual who has not dealt with the tragedy of losing two parents, that, they haven't had the weight of the world on their shoulders. So they're going to be a bit of an idiot. Again, I think they just went too far with it, and you needed to dial it back some. In terms of the miscast, I mean, again, in this version of the story, which granted Ezra was going to be the Flash no matter what. So Muschietti didn't really have a whole lot, he didn't have any say in that. Like, this is your lead actor. For this particular story, to me, they did feel miscast. I mean, even looking back at Justice League, before all of the tumult, I was just like, that's just not who I see as Barry Allen, despite the fact that I thought their performance was fine, was a good supporting performance. But yeah, I mean, and even as younger Barry at the end, when we get there, those scenes back and forth, I'm like, okay, I feel like they've kind of settled into a nice rhythm here. It's just going for that comedy. Again, I think, we talked about it on our show last week, what the tone of this movie was. It was a little all over the place.
I do think you can split up Ezra's scenes and you can look at when are they playing the comedy and when are they playing the emotion? And I think for both young and old Barry, almost across the board, when they're playing the emotion, they're great. Yeah. And when they're playing the comedy, it turns a little broad, like Shannon's talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good delineation, Mike, actually. And Shannon, I totally see your point of view on how you see Ezra's performance as well as both of these characters. There's a story here to tell. Like, how do these two loving parents that we meet in that universe create this giggling doofus? Like, you're just like, how is that possible that he would come out of that kind of parenting in a very incredible house and loving house and whatever? Like, how would he come out to be this irresponsible, this much of a doofus or whatever? And then they have their interactions, but it was almost like Barry had gotten a younger brother almost overnight. And how do you navigate that? And I think it all leads to that moment where Barry 1 yells at Barry 2 and is like, calls him out on everything. And Barry 2 like goes, dude, you're such a dick, you know? And then when you think they're going to go their opposite directions, Barry 1 really takes it and apologizes, which I think is a growth moment. And Barry 2 says, yeah, dude, it's okay. You're not bad, man. It's, you know, I can get obnoxious. I totally get it. So there was an understanding between them that I thought was really cool to see if you bought into the fact that they're kind of essentially brothers and the progression of it all. And he really did care about him when he was getting hit by lightning and all of that. Barry 2 really does care. So what Michael is saying, I think, is a good way to delineate it. The emotional scenes work with Ezra. The comedy maybe didn't 100% get there when you look at it through Shannon's point of view, which I think is fair completely. Let's take a quick break because we're at the half-hour mark. And then I want to ask you guys, let's get into the Michael Keaton thing, and then we'll hit some of these Streamlabs and Super Chats here when we come back right after this. Got nothing, huh?
Damn,
okay.
I got nothing.
You know Shannon's mad about a movie when he doesn't even have like filler music. Here, Shannon, what's your filler music? We're going on break.
It's like you're in the room.
I got your junkie XL right over here. All right, let's move on. This is Michael Keaton as the Batman. Shannon, I'll go to you first because I went to Michael first about the Ezra thing. Shannon, your thoughts on the Michael Keaton Batman stuff? He's introduced here. Is he the old guy with long? Some people had thought that, including me, that was maybe Michelle Pfeiffer in the trailer. No, it's actually Bruce Wayne there with the long hair. He's in the sweater. He says Gotham's at peace. They don't need him anymore. He's not Batman anymore. He says he doesn't want to help. Then within 2 minutes, he's helping. He shaved his beard. He's ready to go. We get the Batwing stuff. We go to Russia. We have this awesome breakout scene, in my opinion, for Supergirl. And then we have these battle sequences and conversations. And essentially, in the end, Michael Keaton's Batman dies multiple times, as well as Sasha Calle's Supergirl multiple times. So what did you think about seeing Michael Keaton back? We get the we are not you want to get nuts, let's get nuts line. We hear the music and everything. We see him doing fights, which is pretty incredible for a 71-year-old. So your thoughts overall, did you like it, and did it work story-wise, and was it everything you were hoping to see from Michael Keaton's Batman?
In terms of performance, loved it. Love seeing Michael Keaton again. I think one of the things they may have banked on a little too heavily for this movie was the nostalgia factor. I was chatting with some folks at work, and some of them who have kids are like, why are you so excited about seeing this old guy play Batman? Because to them, Christian Bale is Batman.
Yeah,
Michael Keaton's not Batman. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a fair point. Performance-wise, Michael Keaton is in that in this era of his career where it seems like he just can't do anything wrong. Like he's just a joy to see on screen. I think giving him a lot of your expository information was the right thing to do. I loved the spaghetti analogy, talking about timelines. Like, oh, this is a lot of fun. And then, you know, I think the 25-year-old stunt double that they put in the suit in Siberia did a great job as well. In terms of story stuff, I think it was probably missing some components that maybe would have been helpful. Like, we're able to discern quite a bit that Gotham is safe now. There's no need for Batman. Yeah. And as a vigilante, he doesn't really know what to do with himself. So he grows his hair long, eats pizza, and drinks red wine. So I think maybe it would have been helpful for him to kind of, you know, have that line of dialogue saying, like, you know, have Barry ask him, like, you were a hero, what happened? It's like, well, I finished. Like it's done. There's no need for me anymore. But having Michael Keaton back on screen, and again, the movie, not just from his performance, but also from the point in the story, it just really, really takes off with him involved. I mean, I know in the trailer we all flipped out when he said, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." Watching it in the movie, there's no lead up to that. It's just like, okay, I mean, it really worked as in the promotional material, but in terms of like what you're actually saying, you could have just said like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. It was, Michael Keaton's. He was just a lot of fun. One thing that I don't know if we'll get to this as we're talking in the review. One thing that I think as an older Bruce Wayne, he is kind of slipping. If you're trying to keep the fact that you are Batman a secret, maybe don't fly a bat-shaped kite coming out of your mansion. But that scene with Ezra when Michael Keaton is saying, I tried to do this. I thought I was going to be able to change what happened. You actually did. Like, that was just such a nice, quiet moment from both of them. And you get that revelation that younger Barry doesn't know why Barry 1 came back. So again, there's some really like nice gems in this movie, even if I didn't care for the whole thing in its entirety.
Fair enough. Michael, you're also a big Michael Keaton Batman fan. Your thoughts overall on how he was presented in the movie? Did it work for you, and Keaton's performance overall?
I mean, I'm kind of with Shannon on this one. Keaton, as an actor, is at that phase he's at that Bill Murray. There's just certain actors who just get to that point where they're just like, I give no fucks and I'm perfect.
And I'm good.
Like every role, like I'm just like every line that I give, every nod of my head, like Keaton's giving it. He is giving it in this movie, and he is doing great. And so seeing him, seeing the Batcave, seeing the Batwing, seeing the Batmobile, like it hits all my nostalgia buttons, and I enjoyed it. So I was happy to see him. To Shannon's point, it's hard to get into this without getting into the original Flashpoint, but part of the reason that
I think it's good.
But part of the reason that Flashpoint, the comic and the animated movie works, is that, look, ultimately this universe doesn't matter. Like it's a dead universe. Like it's not going to work. So this is all here to be like, what is Barry going to learn and what? But the Batman part is that in the Flashpoint comics, it's not Bruce Wayne, it's Thomas Wayne. That in this alternate universe, Bruce got gunned down, and Thomas Wayne was so upset that his son died that he became Batman, and Martha Wayne was so upset that she went crazy and became the Joker.
Right.
And so Bruce Wayne in Barry's universe has his issues with his parents, but when Thomas Wayne in this other universe finds out that there's a universe where his son lives, he's at the end of the movie, he's like, Barry, go back to that universe and tell my son I love him.
Here's a letter.
Barry goes,
here's a letter.
And obviously that's not what they were doing, and I'm not saying they needed to do that in this movie. But what they do need to do is say, what is it that Ben Affleck Batman is missing that Michael Keaton Batman, like what is this connection between these two Batmans of other universes, so that when Barry goes back, he says something to Bruce, which obviously he doesn't given the structure of this movie, but what would Barry say to that Batman that like makes this all matter to Batman? Like what is the Batman story here? And a story that Batman has, which is, I did it. Like that's like Michael Keaton's version of the story. That's not really an arc. There's no emotional arc to, hey, I wanted to stop crime. I did it. So why are you like hiding in a cupboard and like acting like a crazy man? Like you did it. Like take a lap. Cool. Like as opposed to something horrible happened and like there's plenty to pull from, like pull from the Michelle Pfeiffer, pull from the Danny DeVito, pull from anything and say that he had this tragic thing that he failed and that Barry showing up and re-inspiring him gave him an arc. But going, I did it. I'm done. I'm gonna make some spaghetti. Oh, okay, no, I'm back in. Like there's just not a lot of there. And look, Keaton makes the most of what he's got. And so when 100%. Keaton at the end is like, hey, you did save me, Barry. I'm like, look, I believe it. Keaton's a great actor, but it's just, there's not really an arc for that Batman. Like there's it looks like they're trying to build something for it. But at the end of the day, Barry showing up to find a Batman that made Gotham better and solved crime, and then says, hey, why don't you put the suit on one more time to help me out? And then he dies. You're like, he probably would have been better making spaghetti.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think Keaton is fantastic in the movie, and he gives the levels and the story beats that are missing in the movie in his performance, right? In his words, in his dialogue. And you say to yourself, if you're a learned moviegoer, you look at this, you go, that's missing. That's missing. That's missing. But I'm inferring that something was going on here with him so that he delivered a line like that to Barry Allen. It reminds me of some other death scene where the guy's like, you did it. You did bring me back. You did bring me back. It's okay. Oh, yeah. Fucking Jedi. When he says, you can tell your sister you were right. You did thank you for bringing me back. Right. I mean, that's essentially that moment. You did bring me back. So if we had spent time with maybe scenes without Barry, where we see this Michael Keaton, this Bruce Wayne, like seeing the stuff, seeing Zod showing up, seeing that ship showing up, and then like going, I can't get dragged back into this. Maybe even having that Ben Affleck Batman scene where we see him seeing all the relics of the mistakes that he had made from his past in the Michael Keaton version. That would have been super interesting. I agree. We have to have the reasons for why he wants to jump back into the game. Why this kid showing up out of nowhere makes him want to jump back into the game. We have to see it, and so that we can be invested in his journey in this part of the movie, because we already spent so much time being invested in the Barry part of the journey. If you're going to bring Michael Keaton back, you got to give us more. We connect. Yeah.
Bring up this Fredtastic 314 comment right here in the chat. So look, I am fine with him not taking a lap unless you're going to trot him out 30 years later. Like, so hold on.
If he gets back on the track, he's got to take a lap.
You're 100% right. I was happy for Keaton to have saved Gotham from the Joker and to save Gotham from Penguin and to know that Selina was still out there. It was all good. But if you're going to trot him back out, you can't just say, hey, you did it 30 years ago. You're cool. Like, then why did he grow his hair long and paint weird cupids? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So, like, if you're going to put him back in the movie, you have to create a reason for it. So you are correct. He did his lap. Keaton has earned his stripes as the Cape Crusader, as far as I'm concerned. But for this story to work, you need a compelling reason for why did Barry showing up make Bruce's life better than if he had just stayed in Wayne Manor doing what he was doing.
Right. What was he afraid of here? Why did he shut himself off? Because I mean, in Dark Knight Rises, we find out that that Bruce Wayne hasn't done anything for 8 years, right? And you want to find out why. And the same thing here. Why did he let his hair grow? Why is he being the Howard Hughes of this situation? What happened here that sent him into this place? And his door is open. He's living in Doctor Strange's weird ass mansion from Multiverse of Madness. So you're like, well, what is going on here? Why? And there should have been more explored. That being said, the nostalgia of it was incredible. The magic, the Batwing coming down, the music coming back, the bats coming out. And I think that whole sequence when they're saving Kara from the Siberian station was incredible. And he was badass. And yes, his 25-year-old stunt double, what have you. And if you go see it again, notice that they speed up the fight sequences. So I'm wondering if a little bit that might have been Keaton a little bit trying some moves out in the cowl. I don't know. I don't know.
Just the first shot of him in the bat suit walking towards camera, Michael Keaton looked a little wobbly. So there is no amount of film manipulation that's going to make him look like that 25-year-old stuff.
Fair enough. My man can handle a broom, though. He can handle a broom, which I thought was some funny physical.
I mean, that hair was in his face.
It was. You're right. It was. Let's move on to one more thing here before we hit some Streamlabs and Super Chats and then circle back to do a little bit more of the review. SASHA CALLE. She's introduced into the movie here. For those of you who've been following this story for quite some time, Andy Muschietti, there was supposed to be a Supergirl series or movie, and the video's up when Andy Muschietti calls SASHA CALLE to let her know that she is Supergirl, and that is a Latino to Latina, letting them know they are going to play this incredible character in the world of DC. And she is emotional, and she's so just moved by the possibility of being able to do this. And then she's in this movie, and right near the tail end, joins up with the Barrys and Bruce, and then goes out there to fight Zod and dies herself multiple times. But in between, we get an awesome fight sequence with her in Siberia when the sun finally elevates her, and as a pretty good fight sequence with Zod before the end comes for her. So, Michael, what did you think about the introduction of Sasha Calle, and did you think she worked as Supergirl? Would you like her to see her continue?
So in Flashpoint, the comic and the animated movie, it's actually Clark. Like, it is just that Clark landed somewhere else and he's been kept, and they find Clark Kent and he's weak just the way that Kara is. And he comes out and he learns how to be the hero that he is in another universe. I think the switch to making it Supergirl was one of the smarter things that they did. I think that's a brilliant, brilliant idea. And I think Sasha Calle does great.
Yeah.
I think in every scene that she's in, she is awesome. And I would 1000% be on board with seeing more of her as Supergirl. I wish she had more to do. I think that a Kara who had been basically tortured her entire life by humans, flying over and seeing Zod beat some people up and being like, that's not who Kryptonians are, I'm on your side, is a little bit rushed. And again, like, look, it's an over 2-hour movie. So this is one of the issues you have, is with this many storylines and this many characters, how do you parse it all out? But I just wish she had more to do, because I thought she was so great. Yeah. Like, I bought her. I accepted her as Kara. I thought everything she did was awesome. And also, like, and we'll get into my issues with the whole third act battle with Zod, but like, they basically save her. She gets better. She flies to Zod, comes back and says, hey, I'm on your team. And then they go fight Zod. And like, as soon as they get to the Zod battle, everything kind of falls apart, because it's like, you can't win. So I'm just watching you just get pummeled over and over and over again. And there's no there. So had there really been some more going on, I would have really been into it, because I thought she was fantastic.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. I wish there was more with her. Really enjoyed her in the role. Would have liked to have seen. I think there's a scene missing with her and Keaton. I think there's a scene missing where it's Keaton who, ironically, has to tell her that humans are worth saving. That yes, they can be terrible. Like, it's not the Barrys that should say this. It should be the older, learned guy who at times has hunted down humans and hated humans, to have him be the one that's telling Kara about it. And you would have had a Superman Batman scene, which I think, in essence, I think would have been awesome to see between them. And then maybe even a little bit of a button on the joke where he said, Superman, that seems a bit obvious. I'm not super Batman, that if Sasha Calle in a way had kind of retorted that without knowing she was retorting it, she leaves the scene and Keaton is there going, all right, I see it now. So there was something that could have been really cool between them. So Shannon, your thoughts on Sasha Calle, Supergirl, and the introduction and the character and how it worked in the movie?
Loved it. She was great. I mean, I am not overly familiar with her filmography. I know that she was on Young and the Restless, but I thought every moment she was on screen, there is just an intensity behind her eyes. Like, I feel like her presence in the movie brought some needed weight that younger Barry took away a lot. And also just the ferocity that she has in that fight scene after she finds out that they killed Clark. Just so well done. She again, we're basing this off of very little screen time, but the moment she's on screen, again, she's a magnetic performer. If there is an opportunity to either use her as Supergirl going forward or to give her another role, because I think she's more than earned it. And what was great about another thing about her character is you get to see the difference in Kryptonians when they're raised by loving parents in Kansas versus experimented on. I mean, the whole thing where she's just like, wait, what? Like, no, screw you. I'm not sticking around here. And then, like, I do agree with Vogel that she probably needed, it would have been nice to give her a little bit more, aside from watching Zod and the Kryptonians, take out, a little bit of the military. But yeah, she was just dynamic performance. And I hope we get to see more of her again soon.
I will also say, just for the record, that the Supergirl movie that they are doing in Gunn's DC universe is based on the Tom King run of Supergirl. That run starts with Supergirl turning 21 and flying to a planet that has a red sun so that she can get wasted. Sasha Calle would nail that.
Yeah.
Like, it is like the run that they're doing is like badass Supergirl.
Yeah.
And she would be perfect for it. So I really, as much as I said earlier, the whole who is in, who is out in your universe is a fucking mess for DC.
Yeah.
I do think that she was so good, and she was, I don't want to say wasted because it was a nice role, but I think there's a lot more that she could do with this role. And given the story arc that they are going to base her movie on, I would really love to see her continue.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%. All right, there's almost 400 of you watching us live. Thank you very much for joining us. We know you could go other places for a spoiler review of The Flash, so we very much appreciate you all hanging out with us. Please remember to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button right now. We're about to jump into these Streamlabs and Super Chats, and we're going to swing back to a little bit more of the review as well after we answer some of these. But please, as we're doing that, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell button here for the channel. Francisco Lopez says, The Flash is very okay. I like this. I like the story that they were telling, but I feel like they didn't execute the movie right. I also like the concept of traveling to time, but it was ruined with all the CGI. All right, so maybe that's our segue to talk a little bit about the CGI. I want to read you Andy Muschietti's comments to IO9 when he was interviewed about this. He said, we are in the perspective of the Flash. Everything is distorted in terms of lights and textures. We enter this water world, which is basically being, I can see Michael nodding in the corner of my eye, which is basically being in Perry's point of view. It was part of the design, so if it looks a little weird to you, that was intended, is what he said, to address the CGI complaints about the baby stuff at the beginning, and then the time travel, fish bowl, whatever thing that is, the arena bowl they have there, and then some of the CGI in the film as well. So I guess I'll give Shannon first shot at this because Shannon has been the most vocal about it. Shannon?
Okay, so I will get to the babies in a second. But the moment that they had the weird CGI people, I was just like, what? Why this choice?
in the time travel bowl?
Yeah, in the speed force. Like
it's called a Chrono Bowl.
The Chrono Bowl. I apologize.
Apologies. Apologies all around.
Florida State versus Notre Dame in the Chrono Bowl. Go ahead.
A bunch of weird looking football players made out of CG. The whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, why? Dude, like, what was this choice? Like, I can't wrap my head around it. And then when we get to all those cameos at the end, that's the only justification I could figure out in my head is like, is that why you did it? So you could have folks that are, that have come and gone show up as other heroes. I'm like, what a strange decision. Yeah. But to the babies, the moment that someone said that was intentional, I'm like, that is BS. There is no way you would deliberately be like, we are going to have these, because they switch back to normal babies at the end.
They do.
And granted, I know he says like, well, when you're in the Flash's world, this is what it looks like. I think Muschietti was working with what he had. I think there are some things that are not his decision, that this is how they're going to do it. And it's unfortunate because that whole opening, I hope we can talk about the opening, not just the CGI.
Sure, we will.
But it just wasn't great. Even the CGI of Ezra running at times, I'm like, this just doesn't look like you had so much time. How did it look like this? Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, fair enough. Michael, your thoughts?
I have worked on CGI projects. And part of the struggles of production, no matter how much money you have, is that you reach points where you're like, can't we make this look any better? This looks weird. This looks weird to me. And you talk to your VFX team, and you talk to your art directors, and you talk to your production team, and you said, can we have any more time? Can we have any more money? And everyone's like, look, we are at the limits. Like, we have nothing left. And you're like, okay, this is what we've got. You can't say that in an interview. You can't come out in an interview like, hey, so everyone's saying the CG looks bad. Yeah, I thought so too. Oh God, I wish we had 3 more fucking weeks. Like, you just can't say that.
Finally, someone said it. Yes.
Yeah, like you can't say that. So no, I don't think that Andy Muschietti is happy with how the CGI looks in this movie. I don't think that this is all an artistic choice and he really, really wanted everybody to look kind of plastic and fakey. I think everyone looks kind of plastic and fakey. I don't think it's the best CGI. And I think that whether that is production, budget, time, whatever it was, they didn't get where they wanted to get, and they got as close as they could. And the director of the movie cannot come out on opening weekend and say, we tried our best, guys. Like, they just can't do it. So I don't think that Andy Muschietti's comments are correct. And I don't think he really believes them. And I think we can all agree, whether you loved the movie or not, and I think a lot of you in the chat loved the movie, yeah. I think we can all agree that that's not the best CGI we've ever seen.
And to push back slightly on Vogel's point, and I will say this is a feather in his cap. Having seen Vogel moderate some panels before for Hasbro, mainly having to do with My Little Pony, there would be some very vocal fans who would ask some questions and would express their displeasure with the way something went. And Vogel, to his credit, much to Hasbro's chagrin, kind of gave the same answer, where he's like, you know what, you're right. I'm not a fan of how this turned out either, but sometimes you run out of runway. This is all we can. This is as good as we can get it. And again,
there's a reason I'm not at Hasbro anymore, and we're doing a Geek Buddies review right now.
Wait. Thankfully for our sake. Yes. But I'll say this. I want to counter these two gentlemen, and I disagree. I think Andy is telling the truth, and I think Andy did want it to look this way. I think because of what you see, if you go back and watch those It movies, he does a lot of weird shit with Pennywise. That is, weird heads, weird smaller bodies, strange stuff, elongating shit. So I think he does like the look of this. I think there is logic. And I say Latino to Latino, South America to South America, and I'm respecting him. This is actually what his intention was, but I don't think it worked. Even me, the first time I watched it, I was like, why does it look like this? What is the point? But then when I went back and watched some scenes from It today in It Chapter 2, and I was like, maybe there's some logic here for him that makes sense to have done the Chrono Bowl like this. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But the baby stuff, I think, is a different reason. But I want to get through some more of these before we get to the babies. So
we'll get back to them babies.
Them babas. The microwavable babies. Francisco Lopez says, I love the flashes, the Batman, even the Clooney cameo, and Supergirl. Also love that Barry was around in the big fight in Man of Steel. Yeah, an interesting moment there to see a little retconning there to have Barry in the makeshift costume there, saving a kid while his father is crushed by the rubble there. So yeah, interesting moment.
Yeah, that's one of those situations that I was like, oh, that's really cool. I mean, the comparisons to MCU Spidey are inevitable. And this is another situation where you get to see them kind of ape a little bit how it's like, you know what, let's put him in the Metropolis battle. I thought that was actually fun. And Francisco, I'm thrilled you like the movie. Yeah. Sometimes we're not getting it right now, but sometimes in the comments we can get excoriated for expressing our honest opinions. And I would never begrudge anyone for liking something. And so if this movie worked for you, Francisco, I hope you go see it again and again, because I don't want the movie to tank. Yeah.
And I will say, I do like at least one of the flashes. I loved the Batman. I thought Batfleck was good. I like Supergirl. The Clooney cameo we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah. So I like that Barry was around in the Man of Steel battle. So like, even though I feel like I feel like I probably didn't like the movie as much as you did, I actually do like most of the things that you liked.
Just to be fair, Francisco said it was very okay. So that's his thoughts. He didn't 100% love it, but he thought it was very okay. Brandon says, a happy Monday from Oh, well, here's what I'll say. I like the Flashes. I like the Batman. I like the Clooney cameo. The 2 times I went, the audience was like, oh, shit, both times. So it worked if that was the whole point of having the Clooney cameo. This is the second time they've retconned that Metropolis destruction, which I think is interesting. Batman v Superman, they have Batman, Bruce Wayne there, and then this time with the Flash. So it's interesting, but maybe that's the last time we'll be seeing that one. Happy Monday from Brandon from Louisville. Seen the Flash twice, super fun. Barry's story had no emotional connection with me, but all the Batman and Supergirl scenes was my favorite stuff all summer. So there you go.
I love a movie. It had no emotional connection, but it was a ride. That is accurate for this movie. I agree with you on all those points.
You described my feeling about just about every Schwarzenegger and Stallone movie there. Brandon says, does the box office improve? I mean, action movie, not Copland.
Over the top, Johnny, you heartless monster.
Emotional connection? Come on. I wasn't feeling
Come on. Terminator 2, I know now why you cried. This is something I can never do. Boom, 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 boom.
You know how I feel about Edward.
Boom, 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 boom.
You thought Barry 2 was irritating. Let me give you Edward Furlong. All right. Anyway, Brandon, does the box office improve if Christian Bale was the Batman instead of Keaton? Or has Joseph Gordon-Levitt and had Joseph Levitt, I think it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, along with Bale as Robin, Bale's Batman does somehow survive the bomb and freezing Pittsburgh winter waters?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't know. To Shannon's point, for the three of us, I think seeing Keaton as Batman again is just like, oh, that's amazing, and hearing the Tim Burton music. But there is a generation of comic book movie fans who Bale is more their Batman than Keaton ever was. And going all of a sudden having Barry jump into a Christopher Nolan kind of Batman universe, would that have made a difference? Would seeing Joseph Gordon-Levitt kind of stepping into the Robin role have made a difference? It's an interesting. I don't know that it would have made that much of a difference, but it's definitely an interesting movie.
Yeah, I don't know if a Muschietti directed Christopher Nolan sequence works, so I don't know if that would have worked. And I also think Bale wouldn't have come back unless you had fleshed out the storyline and shown why he did the thing. I'm not saying Keaton didn't also have those questions, but like you said, Keaton's at this point where it's like, fuck it, you want to throw me money to do this? I'll do it. I'll have fun doing it. But Bale, I think, is still more about what would be the
Keaton's literally at the,
me to come back.
Hey, I need $5 million to buy a house. What you got? You got $5 million? Yeah, I'll do it. Right. Yeah, I'm good.
I mean, Dope Sick is a fucking phenomenal performance. So like, he's like, I've done my thing. Just pay me for other stuff. I'm happy. Shannon, your thoughts? Do you think Bale would have maybe gotten more butts and seats? Maybe.
I mean, there's certainly an argument that can be made there, but I mean, it's a totally different movie because looking back at the Burton Batman movies compared to where we went with Christian Bale, like there is a levity that Michael Keaton has in the role that matches what they were doing in The Flash. You put Christian Bale, what Ezra did and what Christian Bale has done in the past, those two do not mix. So it's sort of like which one is going to come out on top in that situation.
Okay. Man, like, it's so funny. The writer in me is literally like, yeah, but that's really interesting. Like putting a I actually agree with John. So I think John is right. Like I think Muschietti directing a Nolan film, like it just doesn't, like my brain starts to fry a little bit. But seeing a Christian Bale Batman out of a Nolan movie dealing with neurodivergent Barry Allen from the Muschietti film and trying to see those two like that there's sparks that could either be a disaster or be super interesting.
It's a darker movie for sure because he's calling
it's
Barry out of this bullshit. Yeah, 100%. You can't have Goofy Barry 2 around that Christian Bale. That would never work. That would just.
He's gonna rattle his cage.
Where's the speed flame? Anyway, all right. Jim Fan says, I think the Flash works best when it focuses on the berries. I want to make sure I take down the. Yeah, sorry. Let me take that one down because we're hitting that. I want to hit some of these Streamlabs as well. I think the Flash works best when it focuses on the berries. It was an origin story told through the younger Barry, but once they find Supergirl, the film becomes choppy and goes downhill for me. Also, the VFX throughout were just horrible. I mean, like The Mummy Returns bad. Wow. Wow. That's throwing in Scorpion King. the original Scorpion King in that movie, which is terrible CG. AZ Badfish says, evening buddies. To keep it short, I thought a lot of the CGI was bad, but I was able to look past it, and I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I had a big smile the whole time and said, that's so effing cool a bunch of times. Much love to you all. Have a great week. Thank you, AZ. Yeah, as we said, as Shannon said earlier, we're not going to begrudge you loving the movie for sure. I certainly enjoyed it both times I went. So I'm not going to, I don't think any of us would begrudge you enjoying it, AZ. Jim Fan says, overall, I'm mixed on it, though, and I felt it was a bit overhyped. Maybe it was too ambitious or the trouble production affected it. Also, unless it's Elseworlds like Joker, the Batman, or James Gordon, DCU specific, I'm not interested. These past regime films just feel like lame ducks in how they were used.
It's weird because, I mean, look, we all talk about this and all of you listening are nerds like us. So we all follow all this and whatever. But I do wonder, like, multiverses are weird. And we've never really dealt with multiverses until recently. Yeah. And we've comic book movies are already confusing for the average moviegoer. And I think Marvel has done a pretty decent job. Not lately, per se, but overall Marvel has done a pretty decent job of, like, you kind of know what to follow, or you can kind of follow the bigger story. But, like, once you get into all these different multiverses and stuff, I do wonder if this is like a step too far for the average moviegoer, and DC, even more so than Marvel, is just a little bit too confusing. Yeah.
Okay. Fair. Shannon, anything to add on that?
You talk about the endings that they originally had.
Yes.
And is Michael Keaton showing up at the end? Does that provide us any sort of, does that give the audience anything? When we saw Clooney come out, it was sort of like, funny. Is there any sort of emotional satisfaction from seeing that Barry is back with this Bruce who helped him out, or a version of this Bruce who helped him out? I don't know. It's really tough to say, but I do understand Vogel's point also. When you get into the whole multiverse angle, it's like nothing ever really has any consequences. Like, there's always another version out there.
But Shannon, you bring up a really good point, and I would be interested to see what the script was when the end, because in case nobody knows, like, the ending originally was Barry gets called by Bruce Wayne after his dad is freed from, like, you're good to go. You didn't kill your wife.
Exonerated.
And Bruce, thank you. I was like, what the fuck is that word? Barry's dad is exonerate. Thank God somebody knew it, because I sure didn't.
You literally have X on your shirt.
X, yeah. But the original ending was the car pulls up, and apparently, from what I've heard from people, Michael Keaton gets out and SASHA CALLE gets out, or she shows up as Supergirl. But the idea is that they are both existing in the new DC universe. And I do wonder, to my earlier point about what is the arc for Batman, if Bruce Wayne kind of has this, I've done it, I've cleaned up Gotham, I've done everything I can do, I wish that there was more for me, but there's nothing left. And then he gets this new lease on life where he gets to sort of solve crime in a new universe. I wonder if that might have been the more satisfying thing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. The other ending was supposedly Henry Cavill and Wonder Woman showing back up at the end with either Ben Affleck's or Michael Keaton's Batman. So, because, I mean, Momoa shot a cameo beyond the one that you saw at the end of the movie. I'm Two Fly Cam says, hello, Geek Buddies. I saw this movie with a group of friends, and we all thought it was the worst comic book movie since Fantastic Four. Wow. The CGI was laughably bad, and Ezra was never anyone but Ezra for me. Sasha was great as Supergirl. The movie is a bomb. R.I.P. DCEU. Yeah, a lot of people been...
I mean, I will say, we were just talking about this before we hopped on the live chat. Shannon and I saw it. So Shannon and I both saw it once separately, but we saw it together on Friday night. Saw it Friday night in Los Angeles at the Grove. Packed theater. Sold out. Totally packed. You could have heard a pin drop when that movie ended. Wow.
And not in a good way.
That is not great. That is not great.
That is surprising, man. Wow.
Yeah. It was the audience version of a shrug and a ho-hum.
Wow. Okay. All right. Interesting. Gentleman Science says, for me, The Flash was a better Flash story than No Way Home was a Spider-Man story. I thought Barry went on more of an emotional journey than Peter. These 3 Barrys were more interesting than the 3 Peters. Wow. I cannot in any way condone that opinion, but I respect your opinion, gentlemen scientists. Guys, any thoughts on that real quick?
Here's my thoughts.
Yeah. Real quick, I said. Yes,
I like that Vogel held up an empty glass, like, get ready. The gun's loaded.
I'm gonna have to make another drink to deal with that comment. Listen, let's just, okay, I can't even get into this without, like, we got a long chat. We got a lot more to talk about The Flash, so I'm not going to dive into No Way Home, but I will just say that the way that all of the Peters showing up helps Tom Holland's Peter deal with the death of Aunt May and figure out how he is going to move forward is a more straightforward story than what is happening in The Flash. And if you would like to see my TED Talk on the subject, I will do it on a Patreon for Geek Buddies because I do not have the time right now to deal with it. But if you want to go on the No Way Home versus Flash discussion, I am more than happy to pour all of the whiskey and dive in.
I like that idea. Shay Luna Midnight says, hey, Geek Buddies fam, happy for the Flash review. Thank you, Shay. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Shay.
JC Mighty says, Rocha Island, where the dress code is tinfoil. Yes, absolutely.
By the way, I want to make, I like that we have evolved as a fandom from Hayward Island to just straight up Rocha Island. And I am 1000% going to design a Rocha Island t-shirt and put it up somewhere for everybody to order.
Well, you take what you can get in life, I guess. All right, let's see. Hill Nellums. Oh, great to see you, Hill. He says, I enjoyed the movie, but definitely not up there to me as great. I think 18-year-old Barry character works because in this world where he's had both his parents and hadn't had to grow up with his dad in jail and his mom gone, he didn't need to be serious. Well, there are plenty of 18-year-olds who have parents who get serious and focus on school. So I don't know. It was odd to see that. Yeah.
I do just want to say really quick, because this is kind of the Lord and Miller point that I was making. Like, I agree with that. Like, I think that the distinction of here is a Barry that grew up, loved by both of his parents, no worries in the world, not tortured, not driven by anything, just going along with life is a great choice. I think that him being sort of a stoner, giggly doofus, which gives you comedy, I do think undercuts it a little bit. I think had he been a little bit more maybe like just like a privileged Barry, there's still comedy to be pulled out of that, but it's a little bit more of an I was talking to a friend today about the difference between broad comedy and honest comedy. So broad comedy is where you go for like the really funny, like, oh, you're a doofus, like that kind of joke. And then there's honest comedy where you kind of find like, well, what's the joke? What's the joke in the honest moment? And I feel like I feel like Across the Spider-Verse finds a lot of comedy in honest moments. And I feel like The Flash finds a lot of comedy in broad moments. And that's a subjective thing. Like, you might be a broad comedy person and you're like, right. I thought this was hilarious and this is super my jam. I tend to be more of an honest comedy moment, and that's my jam. So like, I think that's where I felt about young Barry.
Not a Sandler fan, and I get that, of course. Travis Ware says Rocanopolis. I don't know if that's...
Oh my God, into it. Rocha Island?
No.
Rocha Island to Rocanopolis? In.
Otisburg. All right. Anyway, we gotta hit some more of these because we got so many of these. Derek Johnson says no excuse for CGI. It's been in production since CW Flash season 1. The movie was mediocre at best, which is not what it needed to be. Supergirl 100% is going the way of Batgirl. Notice they've not talked about her future. Well, they did. Sasha Calle did come out and say that she had a meeting with people at Warner Brothers and that it seems like they might be really considering bringing her back. So we'll see. Derek's got a few of these, so I'm going to run through all of them. All that smoke coming from Gunn, 100% agree with John on this. Gunn needed to get his butt off Twitter and focus. Don't see Feige out here with that nonsense. Cocaine nostalgia isn't going to work for normal audiences. Woo, Derek, bringing the hammer.
I'm going to make a cocaine nostalgia t-shirt.
Boy, more drinking, Mikey. Derek Johnson, the story of Barry's mother is a huge point in the comics, one he has to live with. Even the TV show had him living with it. The movie literally has him make some same mistake at the end by changing the past and learning nothing. Yes, by putting the
I agree with
tomatoes up on the top
I agree with
for his
that.
dad to get exonerated. Yeah. Do you want to? Well, let's circle back, guys. Derek's got two more, and then we'll circle back to it. You're telling me he's so fast he can go in the past and can't find his mother's killer? Why leave out Eobard Thawne, a more recognizable character who can traverse the multiverse like Barry? Sorry, I got smoked for this movie. Last thing, can we dispel the comic book movie fatigue theory? Spider-Verse is proof of that. We have bad storytelling fatigue, and DCEU and Sony have flooded the market with bad stories. Marvel has had a few, but damn, not this many. Really, last thing, has everyone forgotten that Aquaman is coming out soon? And if they put this same effort into Blue Beetle, then tear the studio down if they ruin the first Hispanic comic book movie hero. I agree with
Derek.
you.
By the way, Derek is hot tonight.
I know. And I like when Derek's hot. I mean, not just because he sends a lot of things, but also I like Derek's points. So what do you guys think about anything Derek had to say in these 6 super chats here, gentlemen?
So a couple things. One, I agree wholeheartedly that an issue with the movie is you can't have a movie where Barry's entire arc is don't fuck with the past, and then he fucks with the past.
At the end.
It's like, oh, I shouldn't have stopped Mom's killer, but I guess a can of tomatoes is cool. No. The butterfly effect is the butterfly effect. It doesn't matter how small it is. Don't fuck with the past. It's spaghetti. So that is a huge issue to me. Secondly, at some point you might be like, I can go anywhere in time. Maybe who killed my mom?
Yeah. I mean, that's the number one.
That's a gimme. Hey, my mom died. That is a seminal event in my life. I can travel back in time. Let's see who killed her. And the fact that they sort of clearly avoided it for the purposes of, as has been evidenced in the past 48 hours, where Muschietti has come out and said it is Eobard Thawne. Right. And that would be, thank you. Fuck. Exonerated. And that is who would be in the sequel. That is a big thing. So I just feel like, again, there's just a lot of things with this movie that have just been poorly thought through.
Let me throw one in. Oh, Shannon, get your response as well. But Fredtastic goes, I want to see a universe where Barry is responsible for his dad's death because he changed the past so his dad didn't have to leave the market. That would have been interesting. So, Shannon, thoughts on any thoughts on Derek Johnson's 6 super chats there?
I mean, to the Thawne argument, I get it in that they literally did the story on Flash season 1.
That's true. That's true.
Maybe you don't want to rehash something that soon because it literally is. It's the exact same story. To the Aquaman point, I am afraid that Derek is probably right in that this movie comes out in about 6 months. I guess you could say that we don't want to overshadow the marketing for Blue Beetle by throwing out another one yet. But the fact that we haven't really seen anything traditionally is not a great sign. And knowing that it is the last movie before the previous regime is completely kind of wiped off the board, it doesn't spell hope for Aquaman. And again, being a huge Aquaman fan who didn't really love the first movie, I would have loved to have gotten a second one that fixed all the issues that I had, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen in December.
Yeah, I've already seen a couple of people tweet about the fact they've seen some early screenings of it and that it is terrible. And so that scares me as well. And we'll get into that when we swing back around. Let's take a quick break because we're well past the half an hour mark, and we'll get into some more of these Streamlabs and Super Chats, and we'll talk Zod, we'll talk those cameos, and we'll talk what's next for the DC universe right after this. Okay.
It's Elfman. It's Elfman, John.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Paul says, also premiering the movie on Juneteenth. Father's Day weekend is a poor decision. Most people are out at family gatherings and community events.
I've seen this on Twitter. I've seen this on Twitter. Guys, a holiday weekend is actually the right weekend to release a movie.
Do you think you like hanging out with your family 24 hours a day? You want to go to a movie theater where you don't have to talk to them for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah,
Thanksgiving weekend, 4th of July weekend, all the big holiday weekends, those are big movie releases. Part of what you do on the weekend is go to the movies. So I don't think that it's the weekend that hurt the movie. I think it's the movie that hurt the movie.
ladies and gentlemen, the weekend. JC Mighty right here saying, thanks, said JC. We appreciate it badly. Major Laser said, even though I saw Supergirl do the laser eyes 1,000 times in the trailer, in the context of the film, it hit me hard. Her anger at Zod was believable. Oh, yeah. Her what did you do?
Yeah.
Holy fuck, that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, you know, you talk about being able to do a lot with a little. That is what SASHA CALLE did.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see. Mez says, I think Keaton's Batman is in a state of disarray precisely because he did it. He spent his life trying to fill that hole in his heart by fighting criminals. Now there's nothing left, but I agree it could have been made more obvious. Yeah, fair point, Mez. Jake the Nerd says, I really enjoyed the movie. It's got flaws, but I think they did an amazing visualization of the multiverse. Did you all catch the jab at Endgame? You might have seen a movie where they tell you that it makes a branch, a new universe. It's wrong. LOL. Yeah, that's true. That was
I did see it. And look, I think the spaghetti analogy is a great analogy to justify why you have old Batman, because Michael Keaton is older than Ben Affleck.
True.
But I gotta go with Marvel being a little bit cleaner.
Well, Endgame's a better movie, so take your jabs if you want, but like you look like a lightweight trying to hit a heavyweight. It doesn't carry the same power that it would if you had nailed the movie as well. Carol has got 4 of these, so I'm gonna read them back to back. Hello, gents. It's been a long time since I've been able to watch live, so buckle up because I got some thoughts / questions. Like Shannon, I have never cared for EZRA Miller as Barry. It's probably Grant Gustin bias. I don't like the Snyder movies and hated how he portrayed the Flash. I will give Muschietti credit because he directed him better in this movie, and I enjoyed it enough to see it twice. I give the Speed Force CGI a pass, but the babies in the beginning, oof. Highlights for me were Michael Keaton and seeing Kevin Smith's Superman Lives anecdote come to life. Questions for the panel. Was that supposed to be Savitar? If it was, the CW show did a much better job with that storyline. I think you guys have already said that. Did anyone else think that was Teddy Sears as Jay Garrick? There was an article that said it wasn't a cameo or CW footage, which I find odd. Missed opportunity to use John Wesley Shipp's Jay Garrick instead. Overall, the movie's enjoyable, but I wish Keaton's Batman and Supergirl storylines were more developed. Carol, I think we're all on the same page with you with a lot of your points here. Teddy Sears as Jay Garrick. Teddy says on Twitter that it wasn't him. I don't know if he's playing around about that, but he said it wasn't him. So... Gentlemen?
No, I think Teddy Sears would have fully come out and said if it was him. Considering like this is like, I mean, I guess he did show up in the last season as Hunter Zolomon again, but also if it was him, it would have been Hunter Zolomon. If you were going to use someone from the series, it would have been better to have used John Wesley Shipp. But in this case, I think they threw a guy in a helmet and said, run in place for a little bit.
That was for the nerds. That was for us hardcore comic book nerds to see Jay Garrick there. Yeah. Michael, any thoughts on that?
That sort of just brings up the bigger issues with that whole sequence, which we'll get to which I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, look, was that Savitar? I don't know. I think it was sort of maybe roughly inspired, but I think if they're doing their own thing, the Jay Garrick thing sort of answered.
All right. Viola J says, hey, buddies, how would you rate the VFX as a whole? I think we answered that. It should have been a perfect...
Low.
Yes. It should have been a perfect 10 since the movie cost $250 million. Also, will Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 box office suffer the same fate? I think Blue Beetle is actually an anomaly here. I think
I agree.
Fine, right? But I think Aquaman 2 is sunk. I think Aquaman 2 is at the bottom of the ocean with a hole in the boat.
I think 100%. I think to your average audience, Aquaman 2 is just like, I don't know what this is. I don't care. Yeah. I'm out. Screw this. Blue Beetle has a chance to just be its own thing. And if it's good, if people go see Blue Beetle on opening weekend and are like, holy shit, that was super fun, people are going to go. Yeah. Like, I think Blue Beetle has a shot.
I agree.
I think you could even remove the references to Batman, and most moviegoers wouldn't necessarily know that this is a DC hero because this is someone absolutely new to folks who are not familiar with the comics or the Injustice video game. I think Blue Beetle has the opportunity to come in and kind of be like a sleeper hit. because I think you can lean into that diversity angle, and that you haven't had a Latino or Hispanic superhero leading their own movie before. So I think that is certainly possible. As to your Aquaman analogy, Johnny, if the ship is on the bottom and it's sunk, they're Atlantean, they can breathe under there. But I do agree. I imagine Aquaman is not going to be breaking the bank at the box office.
Yeah, I saw people raging on Twitter. Why wouldn't you want Aquaman 2 to come out? It's like, fuck you, man. The studio looks at this thing, sees that Flash did worse than Black Adam. Why in the fuck would they release Aquaman 2, which has just as much baggage in a different way because of the whole Amber Heard situation and the Johnny Depp trial? Like, it doesn't make sense. And the Momoa cameo sank like a stone at the end of the Flash. So I think
you got Zaslav out on the streets in Toluca Lake being like, y'all gonna give me $20? Give me $20. Just like,
hey. That's a nice studio. Be ashamed if something happened to it.
They're not letting him into Toluca Lake. They're like, no. You walk down Olive into downtown Burbank.
All right, two more.
Regional humor.
Two more. We'll get back to our conversation, and please keep sending mix. We will answer them as we swing back around. Wayne Edwards says, besides a few hiccups in the story, a bit too many silly moments, and being a bit too long, I really like this film. When the humor hit, it hit. The action scenes and the explanation of the Flash's powers were great, and the mom stuff got me at the end. Yeah. I think the mom stuff worked. Yeah, gentlemen.
The mom stuff, and I will say, look, for a Flashpoint movie, which is what this is based on, the mom stuff is one of the things that you have to get 100% right. And for all of the issues that we're talking about, and all the CG and multiverse and Keaton and SASHA CALLE and everything, I actually think they got the mom stuff really, really right. Like that affected me emotionally. I actually felt that.
Maribel Verdú is the actress who played the mom here. So, Shannon, your thoughts? Did the mom stuff work for you and the way they swung back to it at the end?
Absolutely. Those were some of those more emotional moments, as Vogel was talking about earlier. When Ezra was playing the emotion, it actually worked. And when Ezra was playing the comedy, not so much. I really wish, not that it would have changed the fate of the movie, but I really wish we would have gotten Billy Crudup back. Ron Livingston to me is a little bit of a lump. And Crudup is just, their interactions in Justice League, even though it was like 2 scenes, I really liked the chemistry that Ezra Miller had with Billy Crudup.
There's more angst there. There was more feeling there, I think, between them as well. Yeah, I agree 100%. Ron's great. Don't get me wrong. For certain movies, Ron's great. But for this, it doesn't. Oh, I like him in Office Space.
Listen, I love cream cheese on a bagel.
Wow. Aisha Kenya, good to see Aisha. She said, I felt it was odd that young Barry kept wanting to go back to save Kara, but didn't seem to care as much about his mom dying. It felt like we were missing scenes to support the attachment he had for her. Yeah, I agree 100%, Aisha, because you see him taking that video of her, and they share a little smile when he says it's for my kids. You see Sasha give a little bit of a smile. So you're like, yeah, was there a scene between them where young Barry was kind of awkward and maybe flirting with her a little bit, and she kind of liked it, and so maybe there's a glimpse of a future with them together? So her death is what maybe sparks him as a young kid who's finally found someone he has some feeling for. Her death over and over again is the thing that spins him into madness. That could have made a lot of sense, guys.
But I mean, even without that, I will say that didn't bother me that much, because that young Barry has never lived in a world where his mom died. So until older Barry says, hey, I have to go back and change history so mom dies, that's not even an idea in Barry's head. And as soon as he hears that, he's like, fuck no, we can save everybody. So that part didn't bother me as much, but I do hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Shannon, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I got distracted with the Oracle in the chat who said Mr. Manhattan is not a funny actor, and it took me a second that he was referring to Billy Crudup as Dr. Manhattan. I just got a visual of Crudup in a top hat and a monocle. I'm Mr. Manhattan. Welcome to Manhattan.
Oh, old-timey humor. All right, Fredtastic says, hey, Geek Buddies, I'm loving the show. All your breakdowns are gold. This movie was fun, but the nostalgia wasn't enough to carry the story. I'm a little worried for Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2. I think we addressed that, but thank you, Fred. Thank you so much for sending that in for us. All right, gentlemen, let's swing back, and please keep sending in Streamlabs super chats. We'll swing back again to answer them in a little bit. Let's keep going with this. The next thing I have on my list is Zod. Did you think this worked? Did not work? Was Michael Shannon cashing a paycheck here? Gentlemen, your thoughts on this big bad baddie and then this final battle? Michael, you see him? Go ahead, man. You take it away.
Michael Shannon has basically straight up said he was cashing a paycheck. So he was like, Michael Shannon has come out in every interview and been like, yeah, I didn't love this. Like, he's been straight up about it.
Yeah.
Here's the tragedy of it all, is that the idea of using Zod from Man of Steel as this big thing that they all have to deal with in the absence of a Kal-El is, even when we saw the trailers, like when we did our trailer reviews, if you go back and watch them, I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think it is the smartest idea. In Flashpoint, the impossible issue is that Aquaman and Atlantis are at war with Diana and Themyscira. And it is equally as impossible. It is an epic battle that nobody can figure out. So using Zod in the world of the DCEU is great. The issue that I had was, for a third act battle to be compelling, you have to believe that your heroes have a shot.
Right.
And as soon as the four of them show up, they're outgunned. Like, the Kryptonians, you can't kill Kryptonians. So the entire battle sort of loses a lot of steam because you're watching them run around, but they don't really have a plan and there's nothing that they can do. And whether you had decided that the Siberians had kryptonite, or Barry explained to them and Bruce Wayne synthesized something, like, I don't care. Like, there's 1,000 different ways you can figure it out. But if the four of them had had a plan, and that plan had come this close to succeeding, and then they failed, it would have made Barry 2's frustration even greater. Like, we sort of watch this and we've seen Kryptonians and we're like, yeah, what, I really felt it when Keaton's Batman jumped on the back of that giant Kryptonian and just put all those bombs and and I'm watching this and I'm like, this is cool, but like, I know that none of that does anything. So why do I care? But if they had had a plan and it had been compelling and they had really gone toe-to-toe with Zod, I think this third act could have been really, really interesting. And we would have been even more frustrated and we would have been more on Barry 2's side. Like, this whole, like, we were so close, we almost did it. But because they were so far away from doing it, it just kind of felt like, all right, I get it. You're going to lose. You're going to keep dying, whatever. Let's move on. That's kind of how I felt about it.
It's a great point. To make it feel, you had to be invested in how close he was, so you could yourself imagine that you would do the same thing. So it makes it even more tragic that he's constantly trying to do it, so that when Barry 1 says to him, bro, we got to stop. You got to stop. You got to let it go. It would have had more weight to it. Agreed. Michael, Shannon, your thoughts on Michael Shannon and him coming back as Zod and how that final battle sequence worked? Did they build up to it effectively enough, or was it kind of not 100% great?
I saw a brief interview with Michael Shannon where he was just like, wait, he's got that, super low key delivery. It's like, wait, I died. Didn't you see Man of Steel? And they're like, well, no, it's a multiverse. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to explain. What does that mean? I mean, he's just so earnest in his confusion. In terms of his performance, I mean, he didn't really talk a whole lot. I mean, he was just there for that third act battle sequence. I mean, I think if Barry 1 had the opportunity to kind of say, this is what almost happened on my planet, this is why this is a big deal and we have to stop it. And the introduction of kryptonite is not something that I had thought about, but like, wow, that would have been a really, really smart decision. But at the same time, you have a movie that's 2.5 hours. That stuff starts to add up. Maybe in Muschietti's 4-hour cut, maybe it's there. I don't know.
I mean, if only there was a bunch of people keeping a Kryptonian somewhere, and the only way that they could keep them there was kryptonite, it might have been pretty easy. But I mean, that's probably some other movie.
Yeah, and Muschietti did say he has a 4-hour cut, which I thought was like, why would you say that? Why are we going to start this again? Fuck, man. I just was, as soon as he said, I'm like, oh no, we're going to get that release the Muschietti cut nonsense. Even though I agree with the Snyderverse. So to me, this is an interesting situation because I love Man of Steel. I think of the three of us, I'm the one who loves it the most. Although I know Shannon likes it a lot, but I'm the one that loves it.
And
like,
I really am fond of it.
Yeah. So like I'm fond of Goonies. But so this whole situation here with Zod, they should have done, and I've texted you guys this, there should have been more time building this up, getting us to understand why he's the big bad, why Keaton would come out of or Batman would come out of retirement for this, why this is so dangerous, why this is such a threat, beyond Kara doing the back and forth, beyond Barry saying, in my world, this happened, blah, blah, blah. I just would have liked a little bit more of it, more with Shannon, seeing what's going on, seeing the brutality, even the baby stuff. If we had known that before before Kara did, that could have been really interesting as well. But it did give us a chance to see Sasha Calle kicking ass as Supergirl, which I thought was awesome. Her trying to turn off the terraforming thing, which I thought was great in the back and forth. And the surprise of her actually dying. That was a huge surprise. And then seeing the berries work together, which I thought was cool. But in the end, you guys are right. Barry says to Bruce in the kitchen, in my world, we need you because in my world, Batman is the strategist. Batman is the one who understands that he makes the plan, but we never see the plan. And it's kind of intimated that it's Barry who's coming up with the plan when really it should be Bruce coming up with the plan and we all go along with it. So
and there's no plan.
I think is an excellent point to bring up.
There's no plan. But I do agree with you because, even, again, looking back at the source material, they spend a good deal of time in Flashpoint, both the comic and the animated movie, dealing with, this, Atlantis versus Themyscira war across Europe is devastating the entire world. This is like World War III on a metahuman level. And they kind of never let Zod really get past the second act of Man of Steel. Yeah. And what would have been interesting is if it, and to your point, John, about more Bruce Wayne, more Michael Keaton, had you sort of had Zod blow past where he was in Man of Steel and start to devastate the world, really elevate Zod of there's a kind of level of raising the stakes. And because they sort of just end up in the same desert battle that we saw halfway through Man of Steel, you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah. But had you really sort of let that naturally progress, there could have been a lot more there.
You could have even handled, as I mentioned earlier, with the Sasha Calle Michael Keaton scene, where she explains to him what the real power of Zod is. And it maybe isn't 100%. He's not 100% convinced. And then he sees the first destruction of a city by Zod. And it's like, okay, that could have been Gotham. Now I have to dial in. Kind of like we didn't want to get into World War II until they attacked Pearl Harbor, right? And that's the thing. You could have seen that with a miniature version of that with Michael Keaton. Shannon, your thoughts? Anything more on this that we should hit on, or are we good to move on?
No, as you said already, they had the plan. Ezra talked about it, saying, "Hey, we're going to take out the Kryptonians on the ground. She's going to take out." That was the extent of it. As you already pointed out, John, having Michael Keaton be the one to say, all right, this is what we're going to do, that would have worked better.
If he can explain the multiverse, he can come up with a plan to try to beat Zod. So
and to your point, John, there's a great funny bit there where if Barry's like, all right, so she's gonna take out Zod, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and Keaton's like, whoa, you said Batman was a strategist in your universe? And he's and he's like, all right, so maybe let's take a step back there, buddy. Let's talk about this for a minute. And then Bruce Wayne comes in and is like, here's what we're gonna do. You know what I mean? There could have been, and every nerd in the audience would be like, fuck yeah, because all we love is when Batman steps in and says, here's what we're gonna do.
Right, exactly. We're gonna run.
And if he had used penne in this analogy versus spaghetti,
maybe a little risotto.
What's the strongest of the pastas? Anyway, all right, JC says, thoughts on Nick Cage's cameo. While I love the film, I still would have sat through a crap film to see the nod to Tim Burton's unreleased Superman Lives. Also eager to see Fat Man Beyond discuss it. Yeah, that's the show with Kevin Smith and Mark Barnardin. So yeah, definitely. But Gentlemen, let's use this as a springboard to talk about all the cameos here at the end of the movie. We get all these worlds crashing together. We do get the Nicolas Cage Superman Lives, which our dearly departed John Schnepp did a phenomenal documentary about. That you guys, if you haven't seen it, please find that documentary where he goes into and has footage never seen before of Nicolas Cage test screening as Superman, the outfit that he wore. It's an incredible doc. You guys got to see it. But yes, that was a great nod there. But we also got Christopher Reeve coming back and Helen Slater coming back. And we got to see George Reeves. And we got to see Adam West in a real quick cameo. And the rumors were that Cesar Romero was supposed to come back as well to be a part of this. And we saw them all crashing together. And as we mentioned, Jay Garrick there as well. And then eventually they pull apart. And we got that cameo at the end with Aquaman. So what are your thoughts overall with cameos and the Clooney stuff as well as part of that cameo thing? Shannon, your thoughts, please.
I mean, ultimately, it was fun, I guess. I mean, with the folks in the theater who understood, like a lot of folks in my theater didn't know who Helen Slater was. There's like, sure. Who's that? Yeah, who's that blonde woman wearing the Supergirl outfit? It was fine. At that point in the movie, I was just sort of emotionally checked out. Whoa. So it was sort of like, okay, great. I mean, again, if that was the justification for them using the weird CGI people the whole time, I think it was a bad justification. It was fine. I mean, you can picture a world where this worked brilliantly. But I think when you look at, I guess the comparison to No Way Home isn't great when you use Toby and Andrew Garfield because they were so integral to the plot. But yeah, it was fine. The Nick Cage thing was fun, and a lot of people did not know. As soon as I saw the big mechanical spider, I'm like, oh no, it's Nick Cage and his hair.
Emo Superman, as they're calling him. And of course, that's based on Kevin Smith's script. So, Michael, what did you think of the cameos overall, these final cameos and the Aquaman stuff and Clooney coming in as well?
Well, I think the comparison to No Way Home is a good comparison.
Okay.
For exactly the reason that Shannon said. Everyone showed up and they were integral to the plot. I mean, this is this whole moment happens, and unless you're a super geek, what does this moment mean? Like, I get it. Like, I'm with Shannon. As soon as I saw that spider, I was like, oh, they are fucking Nick Caging me. Okay. Like, I get it. And I love Christopher Reeve, and I loved the Helen Slater Superman. So I'm watching all these characters show up, and I get what they're doing. I'm like, okay, so Barry unraveling his universe is unraveling all the universes, and these are all of the universes in the DC universe. Like, I, as a geek, intellectually understand what's happening, and like, it's kind of cool. But there was another part of me that was like, what does this mean to your average moviegoer? Yeah. What does this mean to someone who has no idea that Tim Burton was going to direct a Superman movie written by Kevin Smith by Nick Cage? Like, how does this matter? And also because Barry at that moment was dealing with such a personal Barry moment. Like we're in the middle of Barry and Barry 2 and older Barry 2 having a very intense emotional moment, and we sort of take a break to be like, it's George Reeves, it's Christopher Reeves, it's Nicolas Cage, it's Adam West, and it just came across to me feeling, this is gonna, for everyone who loved it, y'all are gonna hate me, but it felt very cynical. Okay. It felt very, hey, let's give this to the nerds because they're going to love it. But it didn't have anything to do with the main story. Yeah. So I kind of came out of it being like, why? Honestly, as cheesy as fuck as it was, I thought the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths did it better.
Oh, yeah. 100% better than what you see here. That's for sure, man. That's was it John Peters? Who was it was John Peters who the spider thing. Yes, it was. So yeah. What you see there, for those of you who may not know, is Nicolas Cage was rumored to do a film called The Death of Superman or something like that. And it's
Superman Lives.
Sorry, Superman Lives. That's it, the opposite. And Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman. He had the long hair. This was in the 90s, I think. And they had the glossy kind of outfit for him. So very interesting, different type of Superman. Kevin Smith had written the script. They had shot some test stuff. John Peters, though, who was the producer of the film, insisted, because he was obsessed with these massive giant spiders that Superman would have to fight this big spider on another planet, and that would be the main villain, would be this massive spider. That eventually did not happen in the film, but John Peters, ever stubborn to use it, used the spider as the villain in Wild Wild West. Yes, that's what Kenneth Branagh is in Wild Wild West. So he got his wish in a shitty movie, and in the end, might have been a shitty movie, Superman Lives, if it had happened as well. So just giving a little background. Yeah, I didn't mind the cameos. For me, it was cool the first time. The second time, when you're looking at story, it's like, this makes no fucking sense. It's zero sense at all. It's all just to please you. So after the first time, it doesn't really work after that. But it was nice to see Christopher Reeve again. It was fun to see the Nicolas Cage thing. But I'm like, where's Christian Bale? Was that something they didn't want to show? They didn't want to do? What was the issue there? So it would have been interesting to see other Batmen as well. Hell, I mean, if we saw the Lego Spider-Man Spider-Man in Across the Spider-Verse, you tell me you couldn't have had Conroy show up in an animated universe going in there as well? That could have been a nice little change as well. Different, yeah.
And to be clear, like, there's a version of this movie. Like, look, to your point, like, yeah, Across the Spider-Verse, we see like fucking Lego Spider-Man and everybody, and I'm like cheering, and I'm like, that's fucking amazing. But because there's context to it, like, there's a version of this movie where as Barry is trying, like bad example, because I'm just like coming up with it like as we're talking about it, but as Barry 2 is going back and trying to change things and fix things, if every time we saw a different Superman, all of a sudden it was Christopher Reeve trying to help them fight Zod, and then it was George Reeves, and then it was Jay Garrick, and then it was Grant Gustin, and then it was the Kevin Conroy. Like, there's a version of, oh, you're fucking everything up, but it's because Barry 2 is trying to do stuff that I would be like, oh, that's super clever, but it's also tied to the emotional story. This was just a bunch of giant Epcots colliding with each other. And I was like, all right.
I think you make an excellent point. It would have been better. And I'm not saying that I would have encouraged this in CGI, but if they were all still living, it would have been better to see them actually doing something and then seeing the multiverse crashing in.
Yeah.
Things. It's Nick Cage is the only one you see doing anything, actually fighting. I mean, Reeve and Helen Slater just show up and stand there, and everyone else just kind of shows up and stands there. It would have been nice to see more, other than Adam West running, of course. So there you go. This is a spoiler review. Ivan,
thanks for that.
Says it's a spoiler review, Ivan, for fuck's sake. All right, let's take another quick break because we're at the 30-minute mark again, and we'll jump into the babies and get Shannon's full diatribe on the babies right after this.
I feel like I want a little "Be My Baby," "Be My Baby," leading. Be my baby.
All right,
be my little baby.
Mr. McClung, the floor is yours. I think I'm gonna give you a solo shot on this. Please take it away.
Oh goodness!
What are your thoughts on the babies here, man?
Well, I mean, I won't just relegate it to the babies. I'll relegate it to the. I want to talk about the whole opening, and tonally, I just thought this was absolutely the wrong thing to do. How Batman was basically kind of fighting. He said someone's son. I couldn't hear the name, but
Falcone.
Okay, so a gangster with a gun. You know, why they didn't kind of dive into like try to find like a C-list villain that you could use. It just seems like, oh, this is a great opportunity to lean into this bigger world, because at the time it was going to keep going. Yeah. Like why not lean into this world a little bit more and use someone of note? The whole thing with Barry, like the moment that frame stretches right before he takes off running, that was an incredible shot. I was like, oh, this is so much. That is really, really creative and just really, really visually dynamic. The moment where he's getting ready to run and the title starts to come up and then it fades away, from that moment, I'm like, oh no, something is off. But as he's saving, like his whole thing is saving these babies, I'm like, you have an opportunity to make the Flash integral and awesome. And you didn't do it. Like instead you have him saving these weird CGI babies as Miller is shoving food into his mouth or into their mouth. I just was like, wow, what a waste of a sequence. One, you could have probably cut it down in terms of time and use some of that spare time for something a little more relevant later. But I was just so like, oh God, this is so painful. And then when we do finally get to the Batman section, which visually it was pretty cool. Like I like seeing, you know, on the Bat cycle and everything. To me, the Gal Gadot cameo was useless. You're literally doing a joke that they did in Justice League, and you know it wasn't great in Justice League, and they did it even worse here. And you're kind of taking the wind out of Affleck's Batman, who we just now saw just be totally awesome. Yeah. It was just not fun to me at all. And then it kind of bleeds into Barry getting to the station, and his two coworkers again are so kind of broad and over the top. I mean, from that moment, I was like, oh, this is not the movie that I wanted it to be. Well, 2 hours to go.
Michael, your thoughts on the babies and the opening sequence all the way up until his boss tells him to go get coffee with 2 sugars.
Yeah, if somebody in a room pitches, hey, Batman's going to deal with the bad guys and Barry has to deal with the hospital, and we're going to have this whole sequence where Barry has to save everybody in the hospital, and we're going to have babies falling from the sky. You're like, all right, okay, yeah, sounds good. That sounds like something that we could make, but it's like the lack of reality to the entire sequence. If that makes sense. Like, to Shannon's point, give Batman more cool stuff to do.
Yeah.
I know that it was set at the morning because Barry was late for work and there's a whole thing, but Batman during the day is less cool than Batman at night. Like a guy on a motorcycle in a cape flying around on the freeway at like 9 a.m. is going to look weirder than a guy at 9 p.m. Like, so like Batman looked a little bit awkward, but, and like to Shannon's point, was fighting some thugs. Didn't really mean a lot.
No name thugs. Yeah.
But Barry, it's sort of like, so wait, you're telling me that like this entire hospital building falls and only 6 babies, that's the issue. Like, aside from the weird CG of it all, it's I think that the idea that Barry has to save everybody, but he goes for the food first, great idea. That's that's funny because it like is actually logical and makes sense. Like Barry's got to save everybody, and he goes for the burrito. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But give me the babies, but give me more. Give me elderly people. Give me other stuff. Like, show me Barry really be amazing. The whole sequence was sort of like precious. Like, it was like, we're doing a fun little baby gag. So we're only going to focus on these 6 babies and this dog and this lady. But that almost in a way makes Barry feel less amazing, because as the Flash, he should be able to do all of that and 20 times more. So show me the Barry that while Bruce is dealing, and like it would, and to Shannon's point, it would have been great. Make it Two-Face. Make it Poison Ivy. Make it get Margot Robbie in there and make it Harley Quinn. Or do whatever the fuck you want and have Bruce really dealing with something. And then Barry saves all the babies and the elderly and everybody else and does all of these things. And Bruce is like, well, I had it tough. And Barry's like, yeah, you're really great, Batman. Like, there's ways that you can find the comedy in it and still keep Barry as super heroic, but really hyper focusing on baby in microwave, baby with acid, baby with knives. You're Scalpels. Like, this is like a Roger Rabbit cartoon. Like this has turned into a Baby Herman cartoon with the Flash. So like that was really frustrating. And I agree with Shannon, like Diana, I don't know if they just had Gal showed up for 20 minutes and they're like, all right, throw the rope. We got it. But like, it just feels like she shows up to fish for Batman. And then she's like, all right, gotta go, and flies off. It's like, it didn't feel like a compelling cameo. It's like, I get that you want to make it feel like the whole Justice League is around, but it would have been maybe better served to just be a Batman Flash adventure.
Yeah, I think it would. I agree with you guys on that. I agree with you guys on the Batman Flash adventure. I don't think we needed Wonder Woman. It hits even worse knowing we know she's not going to come back. So having her show up like that, just like at the end of Shazam 2, you're just like, this kind of sucks. Like you get that feeling because you know that, right? And so whereas Ben, maybe there's a possibility, who knows? But like with Gal, it's pretty clear, and she even said that over the weekend that like she is now focusing on other things and has probably come to terms with the fact that she's being empowered. She feels empowered to leave Wonder Woman. So, but yeah, it didn't work. And the comedy there, it was very close to just Joss Whedon level with Flash on top of her and stuff with him. I think about sex, that kind of thing. Yeah, I know it was weird. And I agree with you, Shannon. Cersei Monica Jackson is a fucking damn good actress. I love her on Dairy Girls. Wasting her in a useless role like this. And look, I know that she probably took it because being the DC universe, this is awesome. And being Flash, I got no qualms with her taking the role, but it's just a waste. And the actor who plays his boss, that's a British actor I've seen in so many things. The Kumar's at number 42. He's such a great comic actor and such a good serious actor. Throwing him in for one fucking scene, I'm like, what? So there was a lot that just didn't make sense. That if you're going to trim the fat, and that includes Kiersey Clemons, who was completely useless in this movie. No reason to put her in it other than to maybe allude to Zack Snyder's Justice League. There was no reason to have her in it. If you cut out those scenes, you've got some extra minutes to feed us in the back half of the movie to give us more depth, more conversation, more nuance, more of a build with these characters of Batgirl and Supergirl and Michael Keaton's Batman that would have been more essential and driven the point home a little bit better and left us feeling stronger about the movie after it was over. So yeah, I agree with that. But the babies thing, I will actually defend it and say that you can't actually have real babies in fucking peril like that. I think people would have really viscerally bad reactions to it, especially mothers who can't have children or people who've lost babies. Like, you don't want to risk that. So making it comical and kind of stupid and making the CGI weird, I didn't mind it. I kind of understood what he was doing. My problem was it seemed like a bad version of what we saw with Evan Peters the first time he did Quicksilver. I thought, like, why are you doing it like this?
Why did it feel like a bad version?
Oh, because that was so good, that version, and it didn't use babies. And if you're gonna, I think the idea of using babies at all was a dumb idea. I agree with you.
Well, so here, so I agree. So
this is the way to do it.
Yeah. You're sort of in that halfway point, and so I sort of half agree with you. It's like, if you want to make the point that putting babies in peril is fucking weird and it weirds people out, I'm on board with you. Don't do it. Do you know how many people there are? Do you know how many people there are in a fucking hospital that could fall out of a fucking window that you need to fucking save that aren't fucking babies?
Okay, Steve.
But if you're gonna do babies, like, you can't go, hey guys, I love that we say baby shower. Let's do it. And then say, but let's make them look super weird so it doesn't make people feel funky. Like, that's a weird choice.
I mean, you're throwing one into a microwave that just made a burrito. So to me, I'm like, this makes no sense. But there you go. I do want to highlight Dino Guy, where Dino Guy Nolan would have thrown real babies. What's that? What'd you say? Which one, Shannon? Oh yeah, Nolan would have used real babies. Snyder too. Snyder would have absolutely used real babies, and one of them died probably too. Let's see if there's anything more. Okay, so we've already talked about the Affleck. Okay, anything we want to say on the Aquaman camp? I think we hit it, right?
Well, I think maybe like let's hit on the ending a little bit, because I feel like half of Twitter feels like Clooney is the new Batman in Brave and the Bold. And half of Twitter is like, what are you talking about? So I do think that the ending of the movie plus the end credit sequence seems like the funkiest, weird Band-Aid. Like, I don't know even what to call it. Like, what the fuck is going on with the end of this movie? Right. What are they trying to tell us?
That's what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Okay.
The studio got purchased and we're changing directions. The thing that we want to do doesn't make sense. Can we have we cast a new Batman yet? No, that's not happening. Okay, who can we?
But there was
in?
a version. Here's what I find super interesting. So apparently, according and you guys correct me if I'm wrong on this. So like we said earlier, the original version was Barry gets a call from Bruce.
Yeah.
In front of the courthouse, car pulls up. Michael Keaton gets out, and Sasha Calle is there, kind of saying that they are both now in the mainline DC universe, which was what was going to happen prior to Gunn and Safran.
Yeah.
Then all of the audiences that have seen versions of this movie over the past several months, Barry gets a call from Bruce.
Right.
In front of the courthouse, the car pulls up. We see feet come out of the car. Ezra looks at them and says, "Who the fuck are you?" But we don't see who the person is. Which seems like that's the correct version that should happen, knowing that we don't know who Batman is going to be in Brave and the Bold.
Right.
But then at some point, they decided, no, let's have George Clooney be the Batman. But then you have this post-credit sequence with Aquaman where Barry kind of makes this really weird statement where Aquaman's like, but I was still Aquaman in that universe, right? And he's like, yeah, you were still you, but it was this other guy, which makes me feel like, okay, well, so are we now in a different universe? That are we trying to say that Ezra and Aquaman have made it to the Gunn universe, but nobody else has? Like the whole thing is super confusing to me, and I'm a super nerd, and like I think it's super confusing to everybody else, which just sort of underscores my whole DC. You can't get out of your way. You just keep confusing everybody.
Yeah, it's a good point because is this a Gunn approved final post-credit scene? Because remember, Momoa and Ezra showed up at the end of Peacemaker. So is that his way of saying those guys are continuing into my universe? Because I think that's a little bit of a bad idea because we just saw Momoa screaming, leaving Warner Brothers like a dream come true. And pretty much everyone's assuming he's going to be Lobo. And we're already thinking the Aquaman 2 needs to be buried at the bottom of the sea. So it just seemed like an odd cameo on so many levels. Plus him being right, fair point. Bottom of the quarry, then. The fact that he is like a drunk and all this kind of stuff, it just seemed really weird on so many levels. So you're right, Mike. They, in essence, were creating a new universe because remember, there is no Arthur Curry in the Michael Keaton Batman universe,
right?
But there is an Arthur Curry in this one, and so it's just an interesting but confusing ending on so many levels. Shannon, your thoughts on this?
So the Ezra ending where he looks at where they look at a set of feet and they say, "Who are you?" That to me gives the audience the idea that Ezra is going to continue on in this role. My guess is Ezra is not going to continue on in this role.
So
and I imagine that outside of the movie being a gigantic hit, my guess is the studio had made that decision prior to this. The ending with Clooney, I think, puts a nice little bow on it. Like, all right, this universe is going to continue. Will we go back to it at some point? It's there if we want to use it. More than likely, we're not going to, but it is there if we want to use it. I think, like that was the point of that.
I think you're right. I think it's just a shame that for all the things that we've lived through as nerds and geeks in these comic book universes, we are now having to live through a lame duck series of movies. Like to go watch a movie, like when Marvel started the end credit sequence, it was supposed to be an exciting, like when Nick Fury showed up at the end of Iron Man and said, "Let me talk to you about the Avengers Initiative," they had no clue if they were ever going to get there. It was a fun, wouldn't it be awesome if? And it's so sad, and again, a little cynical, to get to a point with comic book movies where the end credit sequence is like, hey, this is just here because we're not doing this. This is just here for no reason.
And this is all stemming from Grace Randolph, who posted that, according to her sources, that Clooney was going to continue as the Batman in Batman Brave and the Bold. And she had said this months ago, by the way. She had said that her sources were telling her that Clooney was going to be the Batman in Batman Brave and the Bold. So when he showed up here at the end of The Flash, I think that's what got tongues wagging on the internet who had followed Grace's story. So who knows if it's going to happen or not going to happen, but it's
I would be beyond shocked. Like, I don't even know the word that I would be if they came out and said, and George Clooney is going to be Batman in Brave and the Bold.
I don't know. Shannon, I don't know.
Remember how we got knocked for casting an older Batman? Guess what? We're going older.
All right, let's speed force our way through the Streamlabs and super chats. And if anything else you guys want to bring up, we'll bring up, because I think we've really, kind of dived into everything with this movie. All right, Brandon says, wanted to back up my comment about Christian Bale. Technically, his Batman and Keaton's Batman never saw any supernatural threats in their respective films, so the Zod invasion would have been new for both of the characters.
Sure. By the way, that's a great point, and I really wish, even with the Keaton Batman, they had made more of a deal of that. That this is beyond anything that, at least that we know, that Michael Keaton's Batman ever dealt with, and that would have been really interesting.
Yeah. Again, a conversation between him and Kara, talking about, tell me about the Kryptonians, tell me about your weaknesses, tell me about Batman would want to know everything about Kryptonians so that he could come up with a plan. So him and Kara could have come up with a plan to attack Zod. That would have been the better choice. Yeah. All right. Shannon, any thoughts on that, or are you good to move on?
No, I mean, you can make the argument with Batman and Robin that, with Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze, it's like, okay, this is some bigger stuff, but that wasn't Keaton.
No,
that
right.
was Clooney.
That was Clooney, yeah. Fantastic says, I wanted to see a universe where Barry is responsible for his dad's death. Oh, because he changed the past so his dad didn't have to leave the market. I think we hit that already earlier.
That would have been awesome. Yeah. That would have been really interesting.
I agree. Jay West says, Keaton's Batman seemed like he was not fazed by Zod. What other threats do you think his Batman faced off against after Batman Returns? Oh, that's a great question.
Nipples? Nipples on the bat suit?
No, not Kilmer's Batman.
Nipples.
I don't know.
Batmite.
Fucking Batmite. Played by Rowan Atkinson.
Oh my God, that would have been great. Derek Johnson says, always love the show, guys. Thanks for letting me get this smoke off my chest. Of course, Derek. We love having you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen this much smoke come from Derek. It was a lot of fun.
JC Midas says, Club Shannon, where beats hump. There you go.
Oh, Jesus.
Beat some in between, you get dad jokes.
That's true. Cooley High says, hey, pals, Flash was excited to see Andy Muschietti direct The Brave and the Bold, though. Also, I thought about John Schnapp when I saw Nick Cage's Superman as well. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, let's real quick. Muschietti directing Brave and the Bold. Do you guys think this is a good thing now in light of The Flash coming out? Do we not blame Muschietti for this because it was kind of like a crazy situation to direct the movie in? Do we have more hope for Brave and the Bold, gentlemen?
Look, we said this on our main show this week and we talked about it, or last week, but I'm nervous about the tone. I think Muschietti makes some beautiful images. Like, look, despite some of my story issues, there's some shots in this movie that are beautiful. Yeah. And I think The Brave and the Bold could be a beautiful, beautiful movie, but a Batman movie in general, tonally, is always a challenge.
Yes.
A Batman movie where you have Damian Wayne is an additional tonal challenge, like 100%. Figuring out the balance of humor, comedy, darkness, pathos, emotion. Like that's a tall order. And so I would say, looking at the comedy versus emotion balance of The Flash, I'm a little worried.
Okay.
And to add one more wrinkle into what Vogel just presented, a Batman movie with Damian Wayne in a universe where superheroes have populated the globe. Like there's a lot to throw. There's a lot to throw at the wall with that one.
Yeah. I don't think I'd be as negative about a Clooney Batman as you guys, because I don't think he really had a fair shot at it in that fourth film. And I think just like Ben coming back to do Batman in this movie and saying he really figured it out, and I thought he was fantastic in the scenes we got with Affleck, maybe there's a different approach to this Batman under a different direction that Clooney could work in and would be a much better Batman than he got. So why not? We got Hayden back to play fucking Anakin again. Why wouldn't we get Clooney back? I think
it's not even that I hate the idea. It's not even that I hate the idea of Clooney as a Batman. I just think this is a non-starter, and the fact that DC has thrown this into the mix and made everybody have this, even the discussion that we are having is more of an issue to me than Clooney being Batman if he was actually going to be Batman.
You make an excellent point, Mike. You're right.
Well, and another wrinkle with Clooney, if this is the Batman to start off your new universe, casting a guy in his 60s, maybe not the strongest choice.
Right. And what if he's Batman for Batman Beyond? Would you guys be okay with that? And it's not Keaton?
No, you got to go Michael Keaton.
All right.
No, because Terry McGinnis is not part of the mainline. Come on, man, you're confusing me, man. You're getting all wacky. You're turning this whole thing into fucking spaghetti.
Just saying, James Gunn had auditions on the same weekend as The Flash came out. That's all I'm saying. All right. Anyway, Brandon says Aquaman 2 could still have the female audience boosting the ticket sales. What? No.
Ladies like Momoa. Ladies like Momoa.
I guess, maybe. Aisha Kenya says, can you explain the age difference between Kara and Superman? She said they were sent as babies, but she looked a lot younger in age.
Kal-El was sent as a baby.
Kal-El was sent as a baby, right.
They were not both sent as babies. First of all, Kara was always older than Kal-El, and also in different versions of the story, through different space warp, different things, asteroids, I don't know what. Kal-El's rocket got to Earth faster than Kara's. So even though she was supposed to get there earlier in some versions, she ended up getting there later.
Okay, cool. All right, fair enough. Chris Cox says the whole baby scene, including Batman on the bike, was so bad I was convinced this was all in Barry's head and not really happening. Oops. And Derek Johnson says, if I had known Michael was going to start dropping F-bombs and expressing exactly how I feel about this movie, I would have donated more. Can we agree to stop accepting this type of 90s storytelling with comics? Mike, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do think. Look, I mean, again, I will talk about Across the Spider-Verse all day long. But when you have movies like Across the Spider-Verse that are coming out and they are elevating the way that we tell superhero stories, narratively, emotionally, visually, that when you see something like The Flash, you kind of go, like, this is fine, but this is kind of a not as good version of some of the other really good things that we've seen. Like, push the envelope, give me more. And I think we're at that point with superhero stories. And I think you're seeing this with Marvel Phase 4 and Phase 5. We're seeing this across the board. It's like, we all love superhero movies. We don't have superhero movie fatigue, but we do have giving us the same thing over and over again fatigue. And we want you to push the envelope. And so push the fucking envelope.
Yeah, I think we're in the final stages of the superhero stuff. I really do. Because I think we can only push the envelope so much to where other artists are not going to be able to match the pushing of the envelope. And I think the audience themselves are like, well, I'm not going to go back until you can at the numbers that I did before. And this happens to every genre, by the way, every, Westerns, whatever, like it happens. Eventually the public demands greater stuff. So what you're going to see is, yes, there will be a future where we don't get a superhero film for 2 or 3 years. And then we get one and it's really good. And so that may be like Unforgiven or, those kinds of Westerns that come up every once in a while that are really good. I think
Silverado.
Silverado. Yes, exactly. So it's something that pushes the envelope, but takes some time to develop. And maybe Across the Spider-Verse may be the path in the end, like 4 or 5 years of space and then bang, another installment. Who knows? Brandon says, last comment, I wish for one standalone Ben Affleck movie, low budget, 120 million, double villain action against Deathstroke and the Royal Flush Gang.
By the way, for all that I have said that I do not enjoy Ben Affleck as Batman, I am not mad at this idea.
Yeah, neither am I.
Not mad. I would love to see one movie with a really great fucking script that and not like Ben Affleck has to deal with all the Justice League and all of this, like just like a Ben Affleck being Batman Bruce Wayne, dealing with some shit, and it's a very straightforward movie. Like you think about, what's that movie, The Accountant, that he's in? Is that the one good.
Yeah.
Like you think of a movie like The Accountant, but like give me the Batman version of that. Like,
no,
I'd be in. I'd go see it.
I think 2 things coming out of this movie, right? Or 3 things actually. Keaton, I think that's the last we'll see of him. I really do.
Oh yeah.
Last we'll see of EZRA MILLER in the role. But SASHA CALLE and Ben Affleck come out of this looking really good. So I think if Gunn is smart and if Zaslav is smart, you tell Ben, go and make your Batman movie that you wanted to direct way back when. Do the solo Batman movie. It has nothing to do with the overall universe. And it's a solo adventure movie, and let's see what you make. And I think people would be excited about that. And you'd bring back Jeremy Irons as Alfred, and you have a full movie where they're both together doing an adventure or doing a thing. I think that would be awesome to see.
I think if Matt Reeves' Batman didn't exist, that could potentially happen. But as
because
it stands,
all we need is another Batman in theaters.
We got 7 Jokers and 3 Harley Quinns. I think we can handle another Batman. The Cali Kid says, my review of The Flash, I loved it. It was fun. All right, Cali. Absolutely. Respect that, too. All right, let's hit some of these Streamlabs here as we're wrapping up. I am too Fly Cam says, I don't often feel bad for millionaires, but I do feel bad for Sasha Calle. She deserved a better movie than this. Too bad it's going to lose so much money. Anyone associated with this dud cannot continue into the new DC. That includes the director, in my opinion. Well, that's not going to happen. I don't think so.
Well, yeah, never say never. We'll see what happens.
So, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy's not running. If Kathleen Kennedy was running DC, I think Muschietti would have already been let go from Brave and the Bold. So I don't know necessarily if that's going to happen. And I don't mean that as a negative, because she does that. And it's worked out way more often than not. So just throwing it out there. Let's see. Jake the Nerd has 2 of them here. He says, TED Talk, TED Talk, TED Talk. Echoing Michael's comment there.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah, we got to say, don't say it. If we're going to put it, if we put together a Patreon, we would like to do that for sure. So if you guys have thoughts on those, you can DM us or tweet us some ideas of what you'd love to see from a Patreon. It could be a lot of fun for the Geek Buddies. The Jake the Nerd also said, so who's up for Clooney as Gunn's Batman? LOL, I'm just saying. Everyone screamed. Also, John Schmigadoon is musical magic on Apple TV Plus. LOL. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. So
Schmigadoon's a blast.
You'll like it.
Fredtastic says, oh no, we already got to that one. I am too fly Cam. We already got to that one. Oh, Philly G says the last moment Barry has with his mom crushed me like Thor's moment with Frigga in Endgame. Oh yeah, that's a great comparison. But more so since there wasn't humor added to it. Loved Sasha Calle. Hope to see more of her. Loved old Barry trying to run without the speed force. That was a funny moment. I thought that, although I think he would have sensed the speed force that had left his body. That was a funny moment of him running around.
That was a fun comedy moment.
Yeah, I agree.
Disagree. Again, the moment where Barry face plants into the wall, that pen that Vogel talked about that we heard at the end of the movie, that's when I heard it. That's when I heard it the first time.
Hilarious. All right. Philly G says, when we first see Barry in the Chrono Bowl and the odd CGI, immediately I thought about Muschietti's choice for how the hobo looked in It when he went after Barry in the street and the face was done with cheap-looking CGI. Yeah, I think this is a style choice by Muschietti. Whether we like it or not is a separate conversation, but I think it is a style choice.
Is it a style choice or is it a director who's not comfortable with VFX?
Oh, that's a fair point. I hadn't looked at it that way. That could be true. Haskell has 2 of them here. Hey guys, I hated the CGI babies. Okay, not only did they look horrible, while I get that they're not going to use real babies, either film real ones and paste them into the shot, make the nurse CGI too, and say this is how Barry sees people while running fast, or don't use that sequence at all. Hated the ending, as Derek mentioned, Barry learning nothing and changing the past again. And Iris says she remembers meeting Barry, but they didn't meet in Justice League. He saved her in HBO's Zack Snyder's Justice League. So Zack Snyder's Justice League is now canon and Justice League isn't. Yeah, I think that was kind of the low-key confirmation that Zack Snyder's Justice League is canon for this particular universe. So, yeah. Gentlemen, thoughts on anything else that's said here?
It's almost like DC has made things so confusing that it's hard to tell what's what.
That's a good point there, Mike.
It's like let's just be real for a minute.
Yeah.
When you're at a point where you're like, is this version of Justice League canon or is this version of Justice League canon? You are not in a great spot.
Yeah. And you don't have an answer, you are not in a great spot. You're right about that. Cali Kid also saying, Michael Keaton, Sasha Calle were my co-MVPs. I respect that.
I think we're sort of all on that page.
I agree. Yeah. And Marissa Stalker saying, just wanted to say I came to the Geek Buddies long ago for Rocha, but fell just as hard for Mike and Shannon. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Marissa.
I'm glad you found your way here, however you found your way here, because we love having you all hanging out with us. All right, I want to ask one last question to wrap up this review. Actually, let me take one more quick break, and then I'm going to ask this last question, then we'll get on out of here after this. We're back right after this. You got nothing again. Oh my
I got nothing. My wife is texting me saying she's about to start drinking if I don't get out there soon.
Are you done yet? All right, one last question. What do you guys see for the future of DC now? I mean, this is a shock to everybody involved with this movie. Everybody, I mean, Zaslav, the #1 guy, held on to this thing, dealt with the bullshit from that were coming around, all the stuff, the accusations about Ezra. He wrote it all out. He scrapped Batgirl, which looks really stupid now. He let Shazam 2 come out, and now he's let this movie come out, and it has crashed, and it is going to keep crashing for the next few weeks and leave a bad taste in their mouths. James Gunn is holding these auditions for Superman Legacy. He's saying Blue Beetle is going to carry over into his universe. So what are your thoughts going forward with DC? Is this going to work or is this not going to work, gentlemen?
Shannon?
Well, I mean, my guess, personally, I would say hard reboot.
Yeah, what would you do? I guess that's it. What would you do right now to go forward with DC? Sorry. Yeah.
I mean, hard reboot at this point. I think everything that came before it, even Peacemaker, as much as I enjoyed that first season, I'm like, I think you gotta throw the baby out with the bathwater at this point. If you want this cinematic universe to fly, then there can't be any there can't be any confusion going forward. Like, this is a new universe. Here is the starting point. Here we go. Even though I loved Peacemaker.
I gotta say, I don't always agree with the bottom Geek Buddy, but
whoa, yeah.
But no, I think
for those listening on the podcast, my screen is on the
Sure. That's what I meant.
Good save.
Anyways, no, I think Shannon, like, look, I actually, even though I hate the Aquaman movies, I think Jason Momoa as Aquaman is fun. I've always liked Gal as Wonder Woman, despite Wonder Woman 84. I think Viola Davis is great as Amanda Waller. I really thought Peacemaker season 1 was awesome.
Yeah.
But Shannon's actually right. It is such a fucking mess at this point, and they keep trying to do this sort of, well, it's these people, but not these people. Well, it's a new Superman, and at this point, I kind of feel like, and maybe Blue Beetle is an exception if the movie's amazing. I don't know, but like, They have got to, like, there's a way that Aquaman 2 comes out and we just all forget about it, but we love Blue Beetle, and Blue Beetle is sort of our soft reboot in the same way that Spider-Man Far From Home was sort of our soft ending to phase 3. Like, I don't know, but even now I'm trying to do what I'm saying you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
They need to do a hard reboot. Like, fuck everything that came before, whether it was good or bad. The whole thing is tainted. The whole thing is a mess. Like, there's been good stuff in there, but at this point, you have confused us so much. Like, we're all arguing about how confusing phase 5 is of Marvel and that we're not loving where they're going. And they have done a way better job of being clear on what's what than DC has. Like, DC is such a fucking, it's spaghetti. It actually is spaghetti, and you need to untangle it.
They were kind of being meta without knowing they were being meta about their own universe. That's actually a really good point, Michael, for sure. Yeah, I agree with Shannon. A hard reboot. And yeah, I mean, part of being a hard reboot is having to make the hard choices. So if you can fuck the Snyder fans over by getting rid of Superman and Cavill and Gal Gadot, well, you better be able to fuck your own universe over and your own people over by getting rid of Peacemaker and show that you are going to do a hard reset. And then you're going to start over again and start a whole new process. I'm sure you'll find room for another role for Jennifer or your wife there. I'm sure there's something there in the new DC universe that'll be fun for her to play because she's kick-ass in Peacemaker, but there's something there. So start all over again. Reboot it, reset it. Blue Beetle will be great, but this feels just like Fox with the New Mutants and Apocalypse or whatever it was with the Jessica Chastain. I even forget the name of that. Oh, Dark Phoenix. We knew those were dead, lame duck movies. So get rid of them.
Listen.
Don't release Aquaman. But I will say this, Mike, one last thing. Release Batgirl. Because right now, I don't trust Zaslav's fucking opinion about a movie at all if he released Shazam 2 and The Flash, but somehow Batgirl was unsavable, unwatchable. Bull fucking shit. Show me that movie. Yeah.
I will just say this because it's very apropos of our review today. There is a phrase in writing, Because a lot of times what happens when you write a script is you have those golden scenes. Like you're writing a script and you get a scene and you're like, this is the best scene I've ever written. And then as you're trying to go through the script and make the story work, sometimes it's your best scenes that you have to get rid of.
Yeah.
And they call it killing your babies. And given the Flash, I think it is fair to say that what DC needs to do right now is they need to get a fresh start and they need to kill their babies. CG and otherwise.
There you go. All right, 2 last super chats. We're out of here. Kool-Aid High says this movie was made when Snyderverse was a thing. That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a good point. Far back. That's how far back he goes. And Shay Luna Midnight says, please do a 30-minute video someday how the Geek Buddies would approach multi-universe concepts to the public audience. Yeah, that we could do those once a month, 30-minute things.
We should. What is our version? What is our version of TED Talks? We need to come up with a good phrase. Shannon, hey, Shannon, you're the guy. We need a geeky version of TED Talks. Go.
All right. Oh, right this
Get
second?
on that. No. You can go. Think about it. You can go think about it.
So I think tonight's the night we've kind of decided to do a Patreon. So letting you all know, we'll be working on it. So send in your thoughts and your questions, any thoughts and comments. All right. That's it. That's the deal here. We'll see what happens with the Flash.
Guys,
it seems like
I see you all in the chat. It's babies and darlings. I have heard both. It's not always darlings. Leave me alone. It's babies too.
he's had a couple of berries in him. Come on. Drinks. Drinks. Yeah, all right. Anyway, let's get on out of here. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, y'all. We appreciate it. As I said, you guys can go other places and watch live spoiler reviews. So we appreciate the 450 of you who've been with us for a majority of this review. Please remember at this time to subscribe to the channel. Just letting you know, subscribe to the channel right now. I know these two gentlemen are going to give you some more things to do, but please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button. Shannon, what do we have to tell?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at NKToon, where you can kill your darlings. And if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Absolutely. Michael, please.
All right, here's what I need you to do. I need you to kill your babies, first of all. Figuratively. I need you to hit the like button below. I need you to hit the subscribe button to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content. If you are not watching this video live, leave your comments below. You have missed out on a wild live chat, but it can get really exciting below too. So let's get it going in the chat down there. If you are listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars, leave us some comments, helps us go up in the rankings so more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Yeah, and I can't reinforce what Michael said enough. We are on a new server now, Realm FM. They are carrying us now. Great way to show them that we have a strong Geek Buddies audience is for you all who watch us here, and we get into the thousands, to head over and subscribe to us wherever you download podcasts so that we can show them stronger and stronger numbers every week. So if you're listening to us, please do that. We would appreciate it very much. Major Laser wants to know what's our next review. I think it's Indiana Jones. Yes, gentlemen? Is that the next review?
Well, no, I don't think so.
I mean, once you see it.
Oh,
no.
I think we have a Secret Invasion coming out in a couple days.
Right. Yes, that's right. Secret Invasion. Yes, we will do that one as well. So look out for that. We'll definitely be doing it. Shawnee Bear says, Nick Kitcherman came up and made me cry for the King of the Sweaty Schnapp. Absolutely. Brother.
Made me cry for different reasons.
All right, let's get on out of here. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.